October 18th, 2022 to order. Welcome everyone to our meeting today. Today, joining us during our meeting will be Pastor Adianis Morales from Nación de Fe Church. She will be leading us through our invocation. Our Pledge of Allegiance will be done by Mark Lynch, Chief Facilities Officer. National Anthem will be performed by Liberty High School students under the direction of Brandy Smalls. And our mission statement will be read by Stacy Burdett, Director of Elementary Curriculum, and interpretation services by Dr. Lasenia Peñalosa. If you would please join me. Pastor Alanis. Miss Morales. Miss Morales. Let's do that.
It's easy. You know how you have a nephew and a niece? Adia niece.
Adia niece. I love it. Thank
there we go. We thank you, Father, for today. And we thank you because we live in a free country that we can gather together and come in peace and come with the best intentions of doing the best thing for our territory. I thank you, Lord, for the hearts and minds of each person that is here and that is involved in everything that has to do with the education of our children. I ask you, Father, that you lead us today, that you guide us, that you give us more wisdom, more understanding, and that you give us creative ideas to find solutions to the things that are worrying us and that are attacking our children, our systems, and our country. In Jesus' name we pray, knowing that all the answers are here. We just need to come together in agreement for the best of each person that will be involved in everything. We thank you, and in Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Please join me in our pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rugged straggler, the bombs bursting in air, give proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Hey students, chargers.
Good evening. Our mission statement is inspiring all learners to reach their highest potential as responsible, productive citizens.
Good evening, welcome. My name is Dr. Lasenia Peñalosa and I am here to provide interpretation services. Buenas noches y bienvenidos. Mi nombre es la doctora Lasenia Peñalosa y estoy aquí para proveer servicios de interpretación.
Thank you. now is the time when we focus on positive comments from our board members. I will start with Mr. Argoya.
Yeah. So now I'm knee deep in this teaching experience, maybe neck deep. And it's truly been an incredible journey. So not only do I have to thank everyone who's involved in the district, it's been an eye-opening experience. It's not necessarily how I want to retire, but certainly it is an incredibly gratifying and rewarding experience. It is quite possibly the second most challenging thing I've ever done if you really want to do a good job at it. If you don't care, you could potentially skate through and nobody would notice. But if you really care and you really want to put all your heart and love into it, then there's no way that these contracts cover the amount of time. There's no way that these kids aren't the main focus. They're what you think about while you're eating your lunch. It's what you think about when you go home. And then to break that off and then try to worry about your own family and so on, the complications and the experiences of teaching are very much like the military in the sense that there's no time off. It's a 24/7 demanding job. And I just have so much appreciation for what you guys do. I know I've spent almost 2 years fighting to increase your pay, but I've never really wanted to increase your pay like I do today. So I love you guys. I think that you guys are doing a tremendous job. The demands are just unbelievable. And the emotional burden is just like all the other first responders that we have in our community. So thank you. I appreciate you and everyone else who works in the district. Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Melendez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of comments, but one thing is I want to acknowledge the passing of Mr. Ken Smith. Not only was he a past county commissioner, city commissioner, he was also the president of the Education Foundation. And I used to remember him back in the day because folks know that safety and security is so important to me now. And I remember his old sayings, we got to take care of them early or else we're going to have to deal with them later on in the future. And so he really cared deeply about his mission. And so I just want to acknowledge him and the funeral services they had and what a just outstanding gentleman to look up to. The School Safety Committee just recently had its last meeting, and we have staff that attends. And I know we have Mr. Rademacher, Ms. Winston, and Ms. Santiago from the high school level. And we really have a good community discussion about the different policies that we're moving forward with. One of them, which that Dr. Pace may highlight a little bit later, is we started a substance abuse diversion program that for first-time folks that are just using drugs or getting caught on campus, with paraphernalia, that we make them go to or ask them, do they want to participate and go to Park Place and get some treatment? Because it's not just about punishing kids. It's about educating them to make the proper choices in life. And I'm happy to report that over 90% of the parents have elected to participate in the program. And one thing I found out was parents participate with them. I didn't realize that. I thought it was just a student had to go to substance. No, mama and daddy have to actually go there and they get separated and they get taught, because a lot of times the parents don't know, because some kids kind of hide what they're doing at home. So the parents are asked to do their own program, letting them know about the red flags and signals and how to really support your children. So I'm really happy that the school district thought of something that can really give an alternative to kids instead of just punishment. At some point, they have to learn from their mistakes and do better. With that being said, I got to be able to announce Mr. Long, Deputy Fowler, we got Ms. Bettencourt. Come on up. You guys are here for Gateway High School. All right. No, come on all the way up to the front, guys. Come on. This is the principal of Gateway High School. This is Deputy Fowler, and this is the awesome student. I wish, it was all sunshine and rainbows, but unfortunately, there's incidents that happen in school. There's been fights and things like that, and it's happened since the beginning of time. And I always remembered, whenever there's a fight, people gather around and they can instigate, then some people can actually help and do something about it. And that's something that Ms. Bettencourt stepped up. And on September 16th, while on duty as a school resource officer, Deputy Fowler was assigned to Gateway. He was attempting to gain control of a juvenile that was resisting in the course of his investigation. A second juvenile came in behind him and started physically interfering with his attempt to get the student under control. In the process of the obstruction, she could have just sat back with the cell phone and just go, oh, look at me. Instead, she proceeded to help the officer and get the other student away from him. And to me, I cannot tell you how proud I am, because lately there's been some other incidents out there, we all know about it, and that's not always the case. That's not the knee-jerk reaction. As a matter of fact, we have to gain command and control of a school. Whenever there's a fight, we need kids to move on or help. We don't need kids to kind of make it harder for the officers that are trying to do the best they can. And so from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for being brave and for stepping out and helping out your fellow officer, literally. And if, I know he's not a big guy to talk, but I know if you got to say something, Deputy Fowler, man, and just from the bottom of your heart. I know you don't have prepared statements, but, what does it mean for a student to step up and
I didn't think I was
help?
going to have a speaking role here, but I'd never ask a student to come and help me when I'm doing my job. But the fact that you were there, you had my back, I didn't know what this other kid was doing, and suddenly you had him away. He was gone. And it wasn't until I watched the video that I saw you holding him back. He was still trying to come after me, and you held him back the whole way until he got away, and he confronted me later, but we dealt with that separately. But I just want to thank you.
Mr. Long?
If you know Danielle, you know that's just who she is. I mean, she is very helpful. She's involved in so many things at school, and it doesn't surprise me a bit when I saw, when I watched video and I saw what was happening, I was like, hey, I think that's Danielle. So, that's just the type of person she is.
Right. And so I just really want you to be a good role model. Lead that out there again. We want our students that are seeing this video, please, don't need to instigate, either step away or step in, So for that, we want to give you an Amazon gift card. And there we go. And then, and we also want to give you a certificate of appreciation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, you want to say anything? I'm sorry, I forgot. I don't want to put you on the spot, you know what I mean? But, you want to say thank you or anything like that? Or?
Thank you.
All right. That'll be all, Madam Chair.
Mr. Melendez.
I'm sorry, is that the father?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I didn't know Dad was here. I'm sorry. Yeah, please feel free. There's no problem. One second.
I didn't know anything about this.
Did you want to?
Today's the day that I found out that she needed an award, but I had no idea what the award was about. And I'm very proud of you. She's always full of surprises, but this was one big one. This was one big one, believe me. That's one that I won't forget. Unless she was there.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Thacker?
Got a couple things tonight. One is I want to echo Mr. Melendez's comments about Mr. Ken Smith. We lost a true public servant and statesman last week in this community. He was one of the kindest, most selfless people anyone could ever meet. He was a teacher at OHS from 65 to 78. In fact, he taught my wife and I both at that time, and he taught most of my brothers and sisters and most of the people I grew up with. He founded the Education Foundation back in 1985, and in 1994 became its first full-time employed president. And he was the president of the foundation from 94 to 2017, where he sold more education tags, I think, than anybody in the state of Florida, and hence was known around town as the Tag Nag forever, for those of you that were around back then. Taking Mr. Smith in high school was a bit of a rite of passage. Everybody could recite all the presidents in order. Everybody could recite the preamble to the Constitution and beginning of the Declaration of Independence. It was just a rite of passage, and he was truly a special guy. To his wife Jennifer, thank you very much for sharing Mr. Smith with all of us. We could see and experience the life example he set for us, his laugh and humble dedication to our country, community, and his family. Also, I think I have this meeting and one more meeting left to conclude my 8 years on the school board. And I know it's a little quick, but I'm not sure how the next meeting will go, so I've got a couple things I want to comment on and some people I want to thank. If you'll just bear with me for a minute. It'll take me a couple minutes, but not too long. First off, I want to say it has been an honor and a pleasure to serve the students, parents, and the citizens of Osceola County, and I'm eternally grateful to the citizens in District 4 who gave me the opportunity to do this for the last 8 years. I'd like to thank, first off, my best friend, my wife, Jo, and my 3 children and their spouses. I appreciate all the constructive criticism and counsel they've been giving me for the last 8 years. So I love all of you very much. Also, my sisters and brothers who are always there to support me and also provide counsel where they believe I need it. I want to thank the teachers and the staff that make learning possible and create an enjoyable environment for our students. It takes everybody in this district to make that happen. Maintenance crews, landscaping crews, construction managers, safety officers, administrators, teachers, paraprofessionals, technology services, curriculum people, community relations, food services, transportation, many other groups also to do that. It is literally a cast of thousands. No one realizes the work that goes into making a normal day happen. I appreciate you all and thank you for what you do every day. I would like to thank Jay Wheeler, Tim Weishire, Ricky Booth, and Kelvin Soda, who I started on this board with 8 years ago, for serving this board with dignity and integrity. They all communicated with staff to fully understand the issues. While we didn't always agree, we were always civil and respectful to each other, the public, and the district staff. Disagreement is good and it's healthy. Name-calling and personal attacks when you don't agree is not acceptable in my opinion and very detrimental to the school district. This is not further debate and discussion to get to the best outcomes. There's an old saying around, most of you have probably heard, that if both people on both sides of an issue leave a little unhappy, we probably got to the right decision. And I think that's probably true, but that requires debate and discussion. One of the first things I learned in the month after I was elected at school board training was that functional boards represent functional, calm, effective districts. It doesn't mean that everyone who works or interacts with the district is happy. It does mean that issues are met with and dealt with without fear of reprisals, but with confidence to make the best decision possible at the time. Divisiveness leads to paralysis. Ms. Castillo, I have enjoyed the opportunity to get to know you and work with you for the past 4 years. I always appreciate your passion for your constituents and your dedication to the students and staff in our community, and I have enjoyed my time with you the last 4 years. Mr. Bass, thank you very much for stepping up to the board. I admire your life's dedication to making our community better. In my mind, you are the definition of a public servant and a selfless contributor to Osceola County and St. Cloud, and they are both better for you being here. There have been 2 superintendents since I came on the board. The first was Melba Luciana, who many of you will know and remember. She was a couple things to this district. She was our first woman superintendent. She was also our first Hispanic superintendent. What I've always admired and found most interesting about Ms. Luciana was she started in the school district as a paraprofessional. She moved up to become a teacher, got her degree, became a teacher, became a principal and a superintendent of schools. To me, that's an amazing success story and a role model for many people. Thank you, Melba, for all you did and all your contributions to the success of the school district. Second is our current superintendent, Dr. Pace. I want to thank you for what you've done for the district during times of unparalleled issues. Who would have ever thought we'd have going into 3 years of COVID and the issues that are surrounding that. I commend you and your entire leadership staff who was sitting around this table for all you do every day and the leadership team you have in place, and the fact that you do treat our staff and students with grace and dignity in some extremely trying times. Your work ethic is inspiring to me and others in the district and the community and at the state level. There's nothing you won't work for and no task that you won't perform. You have built an outstanding leadership team, and I appreciate all the help and support that each of you have given me over the last 8 years. You are all the epitome of leading by example. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you put into your job and your chosen profession. I was just with a friend of mine in Georgia 2 or 3 weeks ago, and a person I've known for several years, and he asked me a question. He said, is Osceola District better 8 years later than when you got on it? And it's an interesting question that would really make you think when you find the right kind of question. It makes you think and reflect. And after 3 weeks, I don't know the answer to the question. I do know there are a lot of things that I believe are better here. There are also some things in the nation, the political forces that are not better, and those certainly impact our district and our children. I'm hopeful that this will change with time and come back to focusing on what is most important to the community that we live in. It's not about individual egos, getting credit, politics, but our students and the impact we have on our children. Make no doubt about it. Our kids are smart and have access to far more information than I did when I was growing up, and many of you did. When they see what is going on, it impacts their lives every single day. Things around the country, around the world, around the state, that when I was growing up, probably didn't even know much about what was going on outside of our neighborhood. We should strive to help them become critical thinkers and think for themselves, evaluate facts and fictions, know where to dig for accurate information, know how to reason and make decisions for themselves as they grow and mature. Well thought out discussions will never be the same, but they may have common grounds to build on, which will be my hope. I will tell you, one of the most pleasurable experiences on this board has been watching our students perform, as we saw sing the national anthem today. We have, a lot of times we have a fine arts moment. It can be anything, it can be drawing, singing, it doesn't matter. Absolutely amazing what we see. And watching our students perform and receive public accept awards for amazing accomplishments locally, statewide, and even nationally is an absolute thrill to this job. It is certainly more fun than maybe voting on a change order in a contract, I can tell you that. In addition to our truly amazing students that we have, we also have some amazing administrative promotions that have happened during my time. The educational backgrounds and career achievements of our team are humbling, to say the least. We have incredible students and staff in Osceola County, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. We may not be perfect, but there are great successes happening every day. Humility and selflessness can go a long way to build a better community. There's one thing I've learned from many boards and lifetimes of working. A person who believes they are the smartest person in the room and that no one is smart enough to contribute to understand their advanced thinking is far from being the smartest person in the room. Everyone has something to contribute, and it's important to understand what they have to say and listen and learn from every individual. Wisdom comes in many forms and from many different types of people. Humility is the key that opens the door to understanding that. Thank you for the opportunity to serve Osceola County School District and the citizens of Osceola County, and I hope I have made Mr. Smith proud somewhere along the way.
Wow, that's a lot to follow there. I will say, you know, Ken was a dear friend of mine, and if you go look on the back of my truck, I've got probably the first support education license plate that was issued in Osceola County, and I renew it. Every vehicle, it might get faded, but I put it on the new one. So that'll be my reminder to him every time that I walk into my truck. So God bless you, Ken. Thanks everyone for attending tonight, and again, I've always said thanks to the teachers and their support staff for children. I know it's a challenging job, I really do. My son is a teacher, and my sister-in-law, I've got a lot of family members who are teachers in the district, so I hear it here and I hear it at the dinner table. So, but thank God for all that you do. I hope everyone's drying out. I know we went through, I think there's some people that still have some standing water, and I hope the mosquitoes are not carrying you away, because I know that's a big problem right now. Last week, I've been working on this project, and I reported on it last week, and it's finally come to fruition. I want to thank our Arby Creech and his transportation team. We met with Ryan Adams and all the athletic directors in the district regarding the activity bus. Traffic is horrendous, and I want to be able to have these activity buses at all of the schools. They're converted school buses, and they're streamlining the ability to get CDL license now. So it's not bumping up against the union, but if a coach or a teacher or a principal wants to be a driver, we can get all of our student athletes on a bus rather than giving them the car keys and saying, hey, I'll meet you in Melbourne, or I'll meet you here. So it's just going to be safe for the kids, and looking forward to that. So thank you, Mr. Creech. And I'm going to end on, it's not a school district, but we have a lot of school kids participating in the St. Cloud Christmas Parade. Met with Chris Burns just a little while ago. We're getting all of the bands put together. I'm going to announce this. Now, 3 days ago, I met with the representative from Budweiser at the boat basin at Krabby Bill's, bought her lunch, and they're bringing the Budweiser Clydesdale team, and that will be leading the parade. So we're really excited about that. That's really all I have right now. It's been a busy week.
Mr. Bass, Dr. Pace?
I think you all have covered it.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge, next we're going to have the presentation for National Principals Month, and I just want to acknowledge all the principals, especially the ones that I continuously email with issues. I appreciate you helping our families out. And with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the presentation that we have of the National Principals Month, presented by Stacy Burnett. Thank you.
I was told I was a little soft, so I'm gonna bring this up. So I'm not gonna be soft, okay? Because this is for the principals, and thank you, Ms. Castillo, for announcing that so nicely. All right, whereas the School District of Osceola County has declared the month of October 2022 as National Principals Month, in coordination with the efforts of the National Association of Elementary School Principals, the American Federation of School Administrators, and the National Association of Secondary School Principals, working with the U.S. Congress to designate National Principals Month and resolution thereof. Whereas the vision, dedication, and determination of a principal provides the mobilizing force behind any school reform effort. Whereas principals are expected to be educational visionaries, instructional leaders, assessment experts, disciplinarians, community builders, public relations experts, budget analysts, facility managers, special programs administrators, and guardians of various legal, contractual, and policy mandates and initiatives, as well as being entrusted with the education and development of young people, the most valuable resource. Whereas principals will play a vital role in successful implementation of the Every Student Succeeds Act. Whereas principals set the academic tone for the school and work collaboratively with teachers to develop and maintain high curriculum standards, develop mission statements, and set performance goals and objectives for schools to achieve educational excellence. Whereas the School District of Osceola County honors such exemplary elementary and middle-level public, private, and independent school leaders committed to serving students from pre-kindergarten to grade 8 in their profession. Whereas the School District of Osceola County recognizes outstanding middle-level and high school principals who have succeeded in providing high-quality learning opportunities for students, as well as their exemplary contributions to the profession. Whereas to honor and recognize the contribution of all school principals and assistant principals at all grade levels to the success of students in Florida, elementary and secondary schools, and to encourage residents of Florida to observe National Principals Month with appropriate ceremonies and activities that promote awareness of school leadership's role in ensuring that every child has access to a high-quality education. Be it resolved in honor of the service of all school principals and to recognize the importance of their school leadership so that every child has access to a high-quality education and to celebrate school leader accomplishments, the month of October 2022 is hereby designated in Florida to be National Principals Month.
To approve the proclamation.
I have a motion by Mr. Thacker, a second by Mr. Arguello. Board, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, congratulations, and let's make sure we celebrate principals this month. Dr. Pace, we have one appointment.
Yes, we do. If I could invite Mr. Michael Posiak to the podium. Board members, it is my honor tonight to recommend Mr. Michael Posiak to be the assistant principal at our Osceola Juvenile Commitment Facility, AKA Heritage Park Academy, as well as our Oasis Residential Center. Mr. Posiak has held the following positions: English teacher at Harmony High School from 2018 to 2019, and lead teacher and agricultural educator at Heritage Park Academy since 2019. He received his bachelor's degree in psychology from Purdue University, a master's degree in educational leadership from Concordia University, and is currently pursuing his doctorate degree from Arizona State University. Michael has a true love and a dedication to serving this population of students, and I feel confident he will bring additional safety, leadership, and support to Ms. Combs and Ms. Overstreet and their work at these facilities.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Arguello and a second by Mr. Bass with a comment by Mr. Arguello.
Yeah, Mike, I've met you several times. There's one thing that combat veterans always have in common. You can sense the burden of someone else who's been to combat, and you are somebody, it's very obvious, not just, it has nothing to do with being a veteran, but it has to do everything with you carry your burden with so much love. When I toured that school, the amount of effort and love that you put into that duty, and obviously that's the way that you saw it, as just this duty, was extreme. And I just have a ton of appreciation for what you're going to do for that place and for our district. I'm very appreciative of you and you. What a great, tremendous family, and this is it. It's an honor for our district to have you guys as part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, board? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
As with anybody in this position, it takes an extraordinary support from a host of family members, friends, and colleagues to reach this point. Dr. Pace, Mr. Flowers, Dr. Arnott, esteemed board members, thank you for granting me this opportunity to serve my students and teachers in this capacity and for placing your faith in me in this regard. I'd also like to take a moment to extend my sincerest gratitude to my principal, Karen Combs, for running after me 4 years ago. And setting me on this path to serve. I'd like to thank all my students and the staff that have developed my passion and drive towards this opportunity. High-risk students deserve my passion and drive towards their voice, and they need a waymaker and someone who intends to continue to take on that mantle. I want to thank you both, the education staff, facility staff at Heritage Park, Denny Armington with Youth Opportunity Foundations. He's been a great support. Michelle Overstreet, Don Buchanan. I look forward to working alongside you both. To my father, you pushed, you guided, you mentored me. To my mom, you never stopped believing. You have both blessed me beyond measure. I want to thank my wife, Jessica, for supporting me on this journey. That has included many late nights and early mornings. It is my faith in you as a partner and mother and our teamwork that makes this all possible. Thank you to my sons, Jax and Michael. It is my love for you that sparks my passion for my students. I see you in each one of them. The work of educating future generations is a calling. God has called me to this task, opened doors, laid before me this path. He continues to be a lamp unto my feet, and I thank her for bestowing upon me this great responsibility. Thank you all.
And congratulations.
Congratulations, good luck.
All right, team, so we'll go ahead and move on with agenda modifications. I'll start with Mr. Arguello.
Madam Chair, I am pulling 6.02, 11.01, 11.02, sorry,
6.01.
6.02, sorry, 9.01, 11.01, 11.02 from consent. I have discussion on 13.02, 14.01, and 15.01. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Arguello, I've got my, was it 6.01 and 2 or just
6.02
and 9.01?
and 9.01, yes.
I'm just going to repeat everything to make sure we Thank you. 6.02, 9.01, 11.01, 11.02 from consent. Discussion 13.02, 14.01, 15.01. Did I capture everything?
That's correct.
Thank you. Mr. Melendez?
Okay, from consent, I have 10.01. Yeah, we already had 11.02. Right? And on new business, we want to talk about the high-risk student populations and moratorium on residential permits.
Thank you. Mr. Thacker?
I'm okay.
Mr. Bass?
Got all my questions answered. Thank you.
Dr. Pace? Thank you. If I can have,
I will make a motion to approve the agenda with the removals as stated from 6.01, 6.02, 9.01, 11.01, and 11.02 from consent.
Second.
have a motion by Mr. Thacker, a second by Mr. Melendez. Board, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. We'll move forward with 6.02. Mr. Arguello.
Yes, I don't have a comment on the specifics of this bulleted item. I just want to make the introspective remark that when I read through this report of this agenda item, it was very clear that the district as a whole would also be guilty of some of these charges. And if we treated ourselves, I imagine, and it sounds like this was a very thorough, very fair process, that if we also put ourselves through that level of scope, that we would be a much better district. And with that, I'll vote to approve.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
That a motion? I second the motion.
Motion by Mr. Arguello, second by Mr. Thacker. Board, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I will move on to 9.01. That was also Mr. Arguello.
Yes, I'm just curious why we're not going direct to the manufacturer on these patch cables. I imagine that we're purchasing, I mean, it seemed like that was enough to go directly to the manufacturer, which would have been at a more effective cost point.
Thank you. Mr. Thorne?
There's a bid in place, so that's probably what we're going through right now.
Just from the bid that we didn't seek, like, I guess our procurement is really who the question would go to, right? So, wouldn't we have tried to, I mean, we do sole source contracts for other things. It seems like something that would be the cheapest for the intents of purposes. I mean, why wouldn't we have involved manufacturers as opposed to the secondary vendors?
Because of the cost.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I can follow up with purchasing if you want. I mean,
What they're doing is
I don't know if
rescinding the
they're-
award, which gives us time to talk directly to the manufacturers.
That's why I'm bringing it up. Otherwise, it would make sense, but since it's being rescinded.
Like, what is the volume, by the way? I'm sorry.
No, I'm through. Thank you.
I don't
I
have
just want to
any
be
information.
cordial. Like, what is with the volume? Like, how much is being ordered?
I don't have those numbers at my fingertips. I'd have to look.
Yeah, because just as a rule of thumb for myself, because if you're just ordering a couple, you don't really go to the
It's more
manufacturer.
than a couple, because we have a bunch of cabling projects going on, and we're constantly going to schools and replacing cable, rate, things of that nature. So there's a lot of cables. I mean, there's a lot of technology involved in that. So, but I don't have an exact number. I can get that for you.
All right, but would it be enough well, I don't, you don't have to know the exact number, but I know some manufacturers won't even entertain an order for them directly unless it meets like a certain minimum threshold. So if it doesn't meet the minimum threshold, I'm okay with giving this award, but if it has the potential to meet the manufacturer's minimum threshold, then we can save some money, and I'm all for that.
I mean, even 1,000 feet would fall under an MOQ. There's no way that a district would not fall under an MOQ of, you know, certainly it would be tens of thousands of feet of land drop, right?
It would be tens of thousands.
Yeah.
That's a lot, okay. I don't know what the rest of
Just
the
in
board
case.
thinks, but I just think that it would be helpful to at least ask the manufacturer, would they be able to respond? And if they don't respond, then we just bring it back up and vote with the third party that responded to the bid.
I will look at that.
I'll motion to approve.
No, you don't motion to approve because.
This is a rescinding.
Oh, motion to rescind. Okay, I thought you meant motion to approve, okay, yeah, motion to
I'm
rescind.
bringing it up
Okay,
because it's
but-
being rescinded.
The item is to rescind.
Correct. That's what
There was an error in one of the bids found, and so we are rescinding that offer. So that's what we're doing in this particular case.
we are approving the motion to
Rescind.
Okay.
Does that track?
Yeah, that clear,
Is that
yeah,
okay?
yeah, it gets, it got me a little bit confused.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Arguello. Don't know. Second? Thank you, Mr. Thacker. Second by Mr. Thacker. Board, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The next item was 10.01. Mr. Melendez, was that you?
No.
No? Oh, was that Mr. Arguello?
It was Julie's.
Oh, that was me, 10.01, I'm sorry, we have so many, yeah, 10.01.
No problem.
Yes, it is mine. Now, this one, and I'd spoke with Mr. Thorne a little bit earlier, but I just wanted it to be clear for everyone that, because it sounded like this was an audit, and so I didn't know whether or not RSM was involved in something like that, because I know they do like our penetration testing, and he had spoken to me earlier and said, this is checking out our firewall and making sure like it's configured properly or something to that extent. Or you could probably say it better than I am trying to interpret to you, but
We're doing an assessment of what we currently have in our data center, including firewall, our F5 load balancing devices, things like that, just to make sure that we're utilizing them to the best of our ability. So that's currently what this is for.
okay. And then at the end, are they gonna deliver like a findings report, and are you just making, so it's
There will be
similar
a
to like
document.
an audit, but it's not really.
And if there's improvements we can make along the way, then we're going to make those improvements too throughout the process and move that through our change and control process.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate the clarification.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure that, because if it's auditing, why aren't we using it at RSM? But this is more of a process audit to make sure that the firewall is good. So with that, I'm clear on that. So motion approved.
Thank you.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Melendez, a second by Mr. Thacker. Board, all those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. The next item is 11.01. And I believe that was Mr. Arguello.
Yeah, so this is a question for the attorney. Just what is it that we're giving away here? I mean, I read the documents, right? I understand the process, but if it belongs to the district, are we getting anything in return? We're not getting anything in return. I can answer that question for myself, but can we, should we be? Is this?
What occurred was the school board previously conveyed the Beaumont property to the county. There apparently ended up being in a quitclaim deed that was basically whatever rights we have were given away. They're now conveying it to Kissimmee, and in their doing title searches, there's some sort of recording regarding mineral rights. There's no mineral rights on this, I mean, there's nothing on the property to dig or get. And so we're basically saying, per the quitclaim deed, whatever interest we had in that property is yours. We're out of it. And
So as a matter of fact, there are no mineral rights to speak of. There's mineral rights, but no
Right.
minerals to speak of.
It's the typical traditional.
So if they find anything, then they would share it with the district, I imagine. But basically, this is an asset. When you hear mineral rights, you're thinking.
The only mineral rights they may find is cattle vets that they have to clean up.
I went to first grade there. I've dug around everywhere.
Right. So.
Okay, if Clarence went there, let's get rid of it.
Motion approved, or?
Motion to approve.
Did you have another question for Osceola, Mr. Melendez? I know you wanted to. Okay. I have a motion by Arguello, second by Melendez. What all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. 11.02, Mr. Arguello.
Yeah, that was me. Okay, so thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, obviously, we had a big debate about this earlier. I'm much happier with the outcome of this contract. This seems like a far more reasonable issue of supporting the organization, not being derelict in our duties of just surrendering property to an outside organization. I do have one question. So this is something that we would all consider fair if it went around to someone else as well, right? Now, this is not happening because it's Mr. Bass. Anyone could go around and get this deal for another nonprofit organization and so on and so forth, right? This is a matter of support. The district is essentially making a statement that we aid and support nonprofits in this manner, right? And so that if it happens again, if it comes across the desk again, doesn't matter who's bringing it up, we basically have created a precedent where we are aiding outside nonprofit organizations, which I'm okay with, and I'm okay with the lease, right? But I just want to make sure that it's not only because this is Robert Bass and they're going to name this the Robert Bass Building. And I'm being facetious, Robert. My point is that this is not going to be that kind of situation, right? This is not like a situation where it's only because it's Mr. Bass. This is basically a statement that the district is making, and then I would expect for the district to be true and good to all the other organizations in this manner.
There's one qualifier, Board. The organization has to provide a value to our students.
Absolutely. Absolutely, of course, yes. Which I agree that their mission does. I think it falls within that scope. I'm just saying that this is not a Mr. Bass pet project thing, right? That's what you were saying at the last meeting. This is serving our community, using the public resources to serve our community. So I would expect that this would go in multiple directions, not just in one.
The record should.
Would that be correct?
The record should reflect that.
I can ask the superintendent, I would ask the board. Really, I'm asking the board because that's a board decision. So is the rest of the board, you guys would be okay if someone else came with the same purpose and the same investment and the same commitment to a nonprofit organization, that you guys would be supportive of it as long as it, as the caveat was mentioned, would serve our students?
I would say serve the overall mission of the.
And it's agreed that this does.
Yeah.
So if another one also did, right, then we would. That's the precedent that we're creating.
Yeah,
Is that
as
correct?
long as it goes through the same process, I feel like
What was the
that-
due process? Because I didn't really,
This was brought up a year ago, so we're literally just.
I understand. I'm sorry?
This was brought up a year ago, so.
No, Madam Chairman, I understand the process. I was here. I actually read every document that comes before this board. I understand that. But in terms of due process, there was no documentation that was forwarded. It was basically a report by a school board member who came and offered it. And then we had a saying philosophically that we would support it, which I am supporting it. And now we see a lease. So in terms of due process, by definition, the only due process that we've had is the report of a school board member. So I would imagine, again, restating what I said, if the same process were to come across the desk or this dais, then I would imagine there would be the same level of support for a nonprofit or the community in the same manner as we are today.
I disagree with your assessment. I think there was a very specific process, and this was noted a year ago, but I will agree that if an organization would like to make use of anything that we have to offer, and they are benefiting our students, as long as this board agrees that it benefits our students, I wouldn't have an issue with the same process.
Right, that changed the meaning drastically from what I'm saying.
Not
because
for me.
Okay. What I'm saying, what I was saying, which is different than that statement, it's not as long as this board agrees, because we know that everything happens as long as this board agrees. What I'm saying is that we are setting a precedent, all right? I think we can all agree on that. We are setting a precedent where we're doing this. This is not a one-time thing for the benefit of one school board member for whatever reason. The school district and its 5 elected officials, which control that school district, are making a decision to support nonprofits on the basis that they support the mission of the school district. So,
This board is, you're not
this board,
able to
the
buy
next,
a
exactly.
Absolutely. Right.
So if someone were to come in 2 weeks, or someone were to come on Tuesday and say, listen, you guys have a free lot here, I'd like to set up camping for boys in my district, and for, or I'd like, there's this room here that you guys have, and I'd like to practice the flute there with my students, right? And then my whole company, my whole organization is to promote students in Osceola High School play the flute, then I would imagine that we would also support them in the same and equal manner.
I feel like that question has been answered. I also have.
I'm asking the rest of the board as well, not just you, Madam Chair.
So if I may, Mr. Thacker, Mr. Bass,
Thank you.
and Mr. Melendez have put their lights up, so I'm going to go ahead and give them the floor. Mr. Thacker?
When I put my light on initially, it got answered. It was to say it's a similar mission, not somebody who's supports
Absolutely.
space project or whatever's not in our mission. Other than that, I'm in favor of the item.
Thank you, Mr. Bass.
Can I defer for, I want to hear what Felix has to say first.
Mr. Melendez?
Thank you. I want to thank you, Mr. Bass, because, you know, I don't want there to be a belief that, you know, this was like done, you know, in the shadows or anything like that. You know, you did speak about this over a year ago. We were aware of it. We just weren't aware of the specifics. So when the specifics came out, we properly delayed it, and we went over the negotiations. And so to me, I think that was proper. And so I do appreciate it. And the fact of the matter too is, I even spoke with Frank earlier about the possibility of just outright selling it to the Boys and Girls Club as well. And to be honest with you, the $1,000 a month really is nominal for the overall school district budget. And so I was thinking about maybe if we can even amend this item to sit there and say, why don't we escrow the rent that we collect? And at the end of, say, 5 years, if they do decide to buy it, that they have a certain amount of pot of money that they can go ahead and purchase it with it. Now, you know, that's like minus any like negligence. You know, I mean, if they go there and put a bunch of holes in the wall, we would deduct our, you know, like any other landlord, we would deduct, you know, damages to the property. But at the end of the day, that was my main concern, was that we had a lot of liability, and they were alleviated by them actually paying some degree of the rent, and then, you know, being able to help them out. So I think the mission is proper, you know, and also, in all due respect, you know, I went out on Facebook and saw some folks responding, and I saw some general consensus from the community that this is what they want as well. And to me, that was very important, because I didn't want to make a decision, you know, binding some of our school board assets without the community really having a say. And so a lot of folks were overwhelmingly in support of it. And so it was just a matter of the technicalities. And I even spoke with Ms. Ketchum, she's here in the audience, and I went over some details. And so I feel very comfortable voting for this. And so that would be my only suggestion. Is, I don't know if we even need a vote on that, but just something that gets more for you, Dr. Pace, that, you know, if we do collect the rent, that it gets escrowed out in some other amount. So in the future, if they decide to do something, or we can use that money for any potential damages that come up first.
That would need to be a board decision.
Okay, well, then I guess it would be the board decision if we collect that money and account for it separately, in a separate line item, and that way we can just kind of build up a fund in case there are damages. If there are no major damages, then if they want to buy the building in the future, then they have a little kitty that they can use as a part of the down payment assistance, so to speak.
All settled, Mr. Melendez?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Bass and then Mr. Thacker, you have your light up again.
Okay, to call it my pet project, I work on a lot of projects, and if you want to call it a pet project, call it a pet. The kids are my pets, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean that's why we're here. And when Raylan and I were discussing starting the Boys and Girls Club, location was obviously the biggest factor. And did we not? We looked high and low. We looked at different buildings, different lots, maybe trying to build something. I mean, it just kept going. And we drove by I don't know if it was us or someone, but anyways, the building at the corner of Virginia and 10th. It's a 60-year-old building, sits on a 100 by 150-foot lot. It wasn't being used that frequently.
It's not that old.
60 years?
Not that, no, 60 years is not that old.
Oh. I know that.
The building, maybe.
And even though it sits on one large lot, it's kind of a companion lot because the building just sits on a 100 by 150 foot lot. It's zoned residential. The future land use is not commercial, so it kind of fit the mold. We met with Alicia and the Boys and Girls Club crew, and we said, you think this place would work? We measured the walking distance to the schools because there's so many schools on Michigan Avenue. There's a beautiful city park right across the street. There's a bus stop right there. So it just fit the bill. So I brought it to the board to see if they would be willing for us to move in that direction, again, over a year ago. And I thought I was fairly frequent on my updates, like at the beginning of each meeting, on where we were. And we were overwhelmed by the support in the community of people opening up their hearts and opening up their purses. And we've got enough money now for 3 years of operation. And I met with, to let you know, this week I met with the new president of Orlando Health. I met with the city manager of St. Cloud. Both of them are on board. And just so the whole community kind of wrapped their arms around this. And I'm not doing it for any, listen, you can remove my name from every scrap of paper from this. I'm not doing it for any self-interest. I'm doing it from some of the faces that I see here in the crowd that did show up tonight, and would love to hear from you if you wouldn't mind. Alicia Ray Lynn and the man of the hour there. Because the Boys and Girls Club is synonymous with success. It's not like I went and asked for, just some random nonprofit. I would, Ray Lynn, if you wouldn't mind, because
Yeah, I have actually
you
another.
have a card.
candidate
Are
as
we
well.
allowed to allow them to speak on?
Yeah, she
Okay.
has a form, and I have someone else who wants to speak on this as well. Oh, no, that is you.
Hang on.
Raylene.
Is this the
Okay,
person
I have this.
that signed up that will be speaking?
11.02, right
Okay,
here.
then that person can come up.
Yeah, I know.
No, he asked the question.
Well, and the return on investment back to the community, they did an impact study, University of Michigan. For every dollar invested in a Boys and Girls Club, it returns almost $10 back to that community, $9.80. It allows mothers and fathers to stay at work if they have to work and the kids have somewhere to go. It just goes on and on and on. And I think it's going to be a great addition. It's going to allow us to take this tired old building and we can spruce it up and paint it and landscape it and make it something that we can be proud of. Raylene, please, if you could come on up, yeah. I appreciate it.
No worries. Hi there, I'm Raylene Ketchum, and this is just a brief history of how this came about. I became familiar with Boys and Girls Club many, many years ago through Kissimmee. Somebody introduced me to it, and I became a supporter. After you hear the Boys and Girls Club mission and the kids speak their success stories, it's very easy to support. So I was prompted many years later, I just felt God's prompting, we needed to open a club in St. Cloud. And I knew nothing about that. I'm not employed by Boys and Girls Club. I knew nothing how to open a club. I'm a business person. So I reached out, asked them how to do that. They were instrumental in going through those steps. We had to have a needs assessment. Was there a need for such a club in the community? And yes, through talking to law enforcement, community leaders, government agencies, yes, it was, school system. Then we had to find a site. As Robert mentioned, that was quite a challenge. There were several boxes that had to be checked. Had to be close proximity to the schools so the kids could walk, easily accessible, had to have enough room for the kids, and it had to be affordable. And so we reached out to churches, business people, real estate professionals, individuals, county, city, governments, school district. And I'm very proud of our school district that Dr. Pace noticed there was this property that was on the school district's facilities. It's there in St. Cloud, like Robert said, corner of Virginia and 10th. It needs a little TLC. It's not the prettiest building. It is a little older, and I agree, Clarence, 60 is not that old. But it wasn't being used to its full capacity. So here's something I want to share because, and especially since we've been talking about the mission. So as we had up on the board, our school district's mission, that inspiring all learners to reach their highest potential as responsible, productive citizens. Here's the Boys and Girls Club mission statement: to inspire and enable all young people, especially those from disadvantaged circumstances, to realize their full potential as productive, responsible, and caring citizens. I don't think you could get any two organizations to align better than that. So, I say that what this does, and Robert, you were a little bit short in your investment. I had printed off on the Central Florida economic impact, and it's actually per every dollar invested, the yield of the economic impact is $17.81. How that's arrived is we have more high school graduates. The parents are able to work and know that their kids are in a safe environment.
Your 3 minutes are up.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Castillo, I have a question for you. Is it only if you have a form that you're allowed to speak? Okay.
However, we have a whole nother section for speaking. Later, 16.02, so folks can still speak after if it is about the agenda.
Okay, very well. And I do have invitations for each of you. Am I allowed to hand those out, or?
Could you give it to Tanya, please?
Okay. And that's for November 3rd. I would encourage each of you and even the audience to attend. That's to learn more about the club. Once you hear their mission, you'll want to support it.
Thank you so much.
I got a little confused on what Julius was talking about. I don't know that it has to be escrowed. I think we could certainly turn it to a lease to buy or something if we wanted to do that. But right now, I would make a motion. You agree lease to buy would be the same thing?
Yeah, same thing, lease to buy. Now we're just talking about like the money that we collect.
Yeah.
I mean, either way, we can always make it.
We don't have to escrow it to do that. And Frank, tell me if we can do this. I'd make a motion that we accept the contract, amending the terms on the rent that it, use the rent as we see fit, but for the first 5 years, it could go to a lease to buy.
If I get it correct, at the end of 5 years, they have the option to buy it, and the rent they paid would be credited towards the purchase price.
I was just thinking of it, I don't know if 5 years or not, somebody wants to debate.
I think 5 years is halfway.
Then everybody can relook at 5 years, it kind of gives them that.
Yeah, but we're not obligated. I can see what Thacker's point is. We don't want to obligate that because we want to use the money for something else, but.
Right, but
at least give them the
use the
option.
money for something else, they'll still get credit for it.
Correct.
If they go to buy it.
Yes.
Got it? They should have no problem with that. It's a positive for them.
Okay,
That's my motion.
thank you, Mr. Carter. I'll second the motion.
Discussion.
Yeah, this discussion too, actually. Mr. Arguello?
Yeah, so for clarity's sake, there's no person here, and I think that that's obvious, that is opposed to the Boys and Girls Club. At the last meeting, we had to do our duty. Our duty involved due diligence. There's no escaping it. We had to do that. That was not an optional thing. To do it improperly is not a service to the Boys and Girls Club, to their mission, or the district and its mission. The duty has to be done no matter how anyone feels about it. That's the whole point, right? That has been resolved through the changes in the lease. Now, we are providing a service instead of a disservice. I'm perfectly happy with that. At this stage, I'm also happy with the adjustment regarding an option to buy. My question remains solely and exclusively that an acknowledgement that we are setting a precedent that as long as the missions are aligned, okay, that we would be able to do this for another agency, potentially. Now, that's what makes this not a pet project. If the only reason that we're doing this is because it's Bass, because it's Mr. Bass, then that would be the definition of a pet project. If we're, as a district though, saying that we are gonna do this, that we do this, this is a precedent, this is an official action, which is proper, then there's no pet project, then he's doing the right thing.
Potentially, I agree with that. But
Yes.
I'm not, that
That's all.
doesn't mean I just approved anything.
That's absolutely correct.
Potentially, I agree.
Absolutely, and that's all it is, and so I'm looking for a consensus of the board that, and all we're doing is acknowledging that fact. Because to do otherwise, okay, again, how many times has the word precedent been used on this dais? So if we've used it 100 times in the past, okay, this is probably the largest precedent that we've set here, at least in the past 2 years.
Thank you. I do have some heartburn about not actually allocating the funds that they're contributing to us for that purpose. Is that, do you know what I mean? Like, we initially said we would allocate the $1,000 a month for 5 years, look at it at 5 years. If they want to purchase, then we can use that. And then it sounds like there was a further amendment to say we can use the money for whatever we want, but they will still get credit.
No, in the current contract, I understood that we just get $1,000 1 month and we put it in our general
He's
fund.
making an addition to the lease that's presented to you.
Yeah, what he's saying is that he could put it in a general fund instead of creating a special savings account.
Escrow.
Put it into, yeah, so putting it in there. So we don't have to go through the machinations of putting it into another fund. It could just stay in our general fund, and, that way we don't have to worry about accounting for it 100% because it's there. And then, in the future, if they want to desire it, then we can just pull back from the fund to do it.
There's no purpose to the formality, essentially.
For 60 grand.
Yeah, for 60 grand, yeah, it's not.
For 6 million, I would not say the same.
Yeah, I'm tracking you, Mr. Becker.
I understand what you're saying. Thank you for re-explaining it to me. I appreciate that. I still have a little bit of heartburn about it, but
What do we have? I want to know what your heartburn.
I just feel like we're not allocating, they're paying us and we're not allocating it. We're just saying, sure, whatever, if you want, it's fine. It's not, if you're telling me as our chief financial officer that that's good, then I'm good with it.
I think what I'm hearing is that as we collect the rent, it's just going to become miscellaneous revenue. The board is not saying we're going to spend those dollars on something specific.
They are not
That's what
going to
they're-
put it into an escrow account and wait for 5 years.
Correct.
For them. But
But
the entity will have the
entity
credit of
chooses
60,000 off the
Then
purchase
buy,
price.
you'll have the value of 60,000.
Yeah, minus any damages, because that's the assessment we'll do. I'm not saying they would, they're probably
Okay,
good people.
it's
like,
fine.
Put a bunch of holes in the
If
wall.
I could just get with you about the mechanism for how that credit would appear.
In the
We
agreement.
don't have to talk about this right now.
What I'm hearing is it needs to be written into the agreement.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Sure, we have a motion and a second.
Yeah, I made a motion.
Who's in the second? Anybody do the second?
Second, I'll do the second.
Okay, motion by Thacker, second by Melendez. Board, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, like sign? Thank you.
Thank you, board.
You're welcome. We have a discussion on 14.01. I believe that was Mr. Arguello.
We got 1301. I'll make a motion to approve 1301 first.
Oh, yes.
All right, this is regular business.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Thacker to approve 1301, second by Mr. Arguello. Board, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. 1302, and that was Mr. Arguello, yes?
Yes. Okay, so I think, first of all, from what I understand, the selection of these topics would have been the board's prerogative, right?
It is your,
This was
you
audit
decide
board.
what's going to be audited.
Yes.
It comes up to you through the audit advisory committee.
RSM performed their risk assessment, which was presented to the audit advisory committee, and then the audit committee weighed in on which topics to cover to bring to the board first.
And then we have the contract.
Correct.
Right, so normally they would, at least what happened last year is that they brought it forward from the audit committee to here, we discussed it, and then we approved. This is already in contract form, so it's not really giving the board the prerogative to decide what they're gonna.
Well, you guys can decide tonight.
And RSM,
Right,
is
but you have
RSM
the.
here?
Oh, I'm sorry,
They're
hold
not
on.
here?
May I?
They were supposed to be, but I don't believe they are here.
And so we're kind of losing process here, but
I was trying to see if they were here so they can answer your questions, Mr. Arguello. They're not
my
here.
questions are not for RSM, my questions are for the board. RSM, I would have called and asked them a question if I had one for them. So my question is to the board, and to the dais here, we were supposed to discuss this, that's what we did last year. I think that to surrender this to the board as already a contract for approval, again, is not what we did last year, and it's not what we should do. We should be discussing, for the public's sake, number one, right? What they're gonna be doing. Now, I know that you guys are gonna vote on this, but I would recommend that we actually discuss what we're gonna do according to the 10 issues that they had described previously, not to put it in contract form. Once it's in contract form, that tells me that you guys already have the intention to approve these 3 things without discussion. If that's not the case, then I would say table this and bring forth the 10 items that they highlighted for discussion.
I'm actually fine with that.
Then I'll make the motion.
Are you talking about, just to make it clear, are you talking about the audit advisory committee made a suggestion of the top 10 things to look at next year or something like that?
So RSM tells you, they give you a list of 10 things that are worthy of audit.
Right.
And then those things are supposed to come to us, right? They go to the audit committee, and then the audit committee discusses them, and then the audit committee makes a recommendation, and then we discuss it, and then we vote on what we're gonna do. So in this situation, what we're doing is we're receiving a contract already with the 3 things chosen.
Is that not what happened?
So, can I just clarify? Yeah, I mean, the purpose of putting this on the regular agenda was so that the board could evaluate if these 3 statements of work are what you want to move forward
Right,
with.
so where are the other 7?
They were not advised to
That's my
prepare a
point.
statement of work. So
That's-
I just need direction if you want to do this. Are you requesting a board workshop to discuss
No, I'm
all
not.
10?
So what I'm saying, I'll just repeat what I said previously. We should table it, and then RSM should send us the 10 topics that they recommend are worthy of consideration for audit. Then we take the recommendation from the audit committee, and then we discuss it at a board meeting and decide on the 3 things as a board, the way that we're supposed to, because that's our responsibility.
I'm fine with that concept. I think that sometimes those discussions usually happen in a workshop, but
Well, it was provided, I mean, when RSM prepared the risk assessment, it was provided to the school board in school board meeting. You may not have had the discussion you're requesting now at the time, but you all have received that report with the top 10.
We don't have it here as options. What we have is a contract to approve.
I'll go back and find the date, and we can certainly bring it forward
I
again.
think what Mr.
is there any problem if we table this one?
No.
Let's just move, let's table it.
Sure. We'll
Do you think,
table it with the intent of bringing it back
Where?
to the next meeting. Is that enough
Are
time?
we bringing, what we're bringing back is the previously issued RSM risk assessment.
Yeah, I want to see the top 10 list that we had. And actually, what the board should do is, when we look at the top 10, is rank them in the order, because you can't do all
That's
10
what
at
we
the
did
same
last
time. You know, and then we just
I
kind of
think
go
we
down the
did
queue.
that at a workshop, didn't we, last year? And then bring the final forward?
Yeah, and I thought we did that, that's why. So I'm kind of confused. Now, was security not a part of the top 10? I can't remember off the top of my head, I don't have it in front of me.
So
There are
the-
items included in statements of, the first statement of work, which were items 1, 2, and 3 on the risk assessment, which include security items.
So, Madam Chairman, tabling it and the direction is to bring back the 10 items for the board to decide. Are they in agreement that these 3 are the ones, or do they want to change which ones?
It's the board- it's the board.
Along with the audit
Do we as a
committee's
board want to
assessment.
accept the recommendation of the 3?
Yeah.
So I would say RSM's recommendations and then the audit committee's recommendations for us to decide, yeah. So I will make a motion to table this and to bring it back with the RSM's initial recommendations and the audit committee's recommendations for consideration and approval.
Second.
You can call a vote.
I'm thinking about doing a counter, but, motion by Arguello, second by Mr. Melendez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? Aye. I think we need to have a workshop because clearly this is seems to be important. I feel like I've already reviewed this. I've had conversations with RSM, so I'm really confused about what the issue is. But if we want to review 10 different items in a board meeting, I don't think that that's appropriate. But we'll do whatever the board decides, so that's what we're going to do.
We just decided.
Yeah,
I think the issue is the priority of 1 to 10.
I understand what the issue is. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 1401 for discussions.
Yeah, so this is a question for Mr. Clinch. Mr. Clinch, so this is a project which is paid for by federal dollars, right? Is that correct, that
Yes,
process?
sir.
Understood. Okay, motion to approve 14.01.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Arguello, second by Mr. Melendez. Board, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you. And last, we have 1501, also by, Mr.
Oh, 1501.
Okay.
Motion.
1501.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Melendez,
Second.
second by Mr. Bass, with discussion by Mr. Arguello.
No, I need to declare, to abstain because my daughter-in-law is on.
Oh, thank you.
Board, it's probably technically not a conflict because it's a volunteer board. But I will, for appearance sake, I will abstain and I will fill out the appropriate paperwork. If Tanya send it my way.
And just for the record, let me say, it is not a conflict because there's no benefit to either side.
Just in case,
But
you
you
know.
have the right to say you want to.
Go with the appearance.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Arguello, you also have a comment?
No.
Okay. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Board, all those in favor? Aye, with one abstention. 4 with one abstention. Thank you. And now it's a time when we are going to entertain public comments, where I appreciate your focus on today's meeting. I will start by calling Ms. Karen Baker.
Karen Baker, 2484 Yellow Brick Road, St. Cloud. And first I want to say is thank you to Dr. Pace, and I think it was Tanya, who sent me the information I asked about the Constitution Day that you were planning, and I know a lot of work goes into it. I just have a few comments, but I just want to let you know that. So I am speaking about Constitution Day, and I thank you for sending me the agenda for the Celebration Freedom Week. And I know that the hurricane interrupted your plans. I would like to point out, however, that Constitution Day really means Constitution Day, studying and learning about the Constitution and Declaration of Independence, and not about the Statue of Liberty, which we did not have for nearly 100 years later, nor our national anthem, which was written in 1814 by Francis Scott Key. While I love both of these, and I love history, our students should be learning about the Constitution, this document. And I also just recently purchased this book, American History in No Time. So it's a little bit like a shortcut that gives you good information about the Constitution. There is a wealth of information available for our students at all age levels to learn about the Declaration of Independence and Constitution. They should be learning about our founding fathers, such as George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Sam Adams, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, John Hancock, and we can go on. 56 men signed the Declaration of Independence. The ratification of the Constitution was done in convention by the unanimous consent of the states present the 17th day of September, 1787, and was signed by 38 men. If it wasn't for these men, we would not have a Declaration of Independence nor a Constitution. Our children should be learning about the conditions that led up to the Revolutionary War and learn about each of these men and their contributions, and others who fought for liberty, like the Sons of Liberty, Paul Revere, and others who fought in the American Revolution. The history of the American flag during the Revolutionary War is also relevant when we celebrate Constitution Day, and I was happy to see that included. There is a very good article on the history of the American flag and American flag facts that I found on Drexel University. Let's put learning about the Constitution back into Constitution Day and leave learning about the national anthem and the Statue of Liberty and other important events for another day. Thank you.
Drain Knight.
Hi, my name is Diane Knight, Mustang Court, St. Cloud, Florida. I'm here because I just have a concern, and I know it's a concern of all of yours, and that's teacher retention. And I was just wondering if Osceola County has an exit survey or an exit, and how you are using that data to look at the trends of why people are leaving. And do you do it for everyone that exits? I know that I have a friend that just left September 30th, and she said she did not get an exit survey. So what I was wondering, and I'm not here to complain about that, but what I was wondering, is that exit survey done by an independent company, or is it done by people of the school? And maybe it's time to maybe look at an independent company so we can really get those trends. I'm just as concerned about teacher retention as you are, and I'm not seeing any trends or reasons or why. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Dr. Pace and Ms. Otterson, would you be able to email Diane with that information? Thank you.
Now, is it the intent of the school board to send out an exit survey for everyone that does leave?
Yes, we asked for a personal email as a part of the resignation process to make sure that they get it. And we also offer an in-person follow-up if they request it. But we'll find out what's going on.
Okay.
Camille Perez.
Good evening. Camille Perez, 2290 Emperor Drive, Kissimmee, Florida. 34744. You guys need my zip code too? Okay, cool. Since April of this year, media centers and media specialists in this district and across the state of Florida have been under attack. We are tired of the negative energy and the conversations that surround these meetings, and have decided to take the opportunity to share with you and the members of our community some of the amazing things that are happening in our libraries. To start, 16 of our elementary schools are collaborating to create story walks using recycled yard signs. A story walk is a book that has been taken apart page by page and presented around a path. This keeps the signs out of landfill and promotes not only literacy, but also wellness for our students and staff in a district-wide initiative. Each of the elementary schools will have a different story walk monthly to post around campus. Mill Creek Elementary's media specialist was able to secure a $3,000 grant from Dollar General to help readers make strides. The media specialist at Canoe Creek K-8 started a parent-student book club using the SSYRA book, Stella. The book club had their first meeting where they were able to actually virtually meet with the author herself. And that's a wonderful opportunity for the parents and students to not only build their relationships together, but establish that love for literacy as well. Students at Toho High School are not only able to utilize the media center during lunch for games and for reading, but they're also able to come in for lessons with their media specialists on how to properly cite their sources as well as use Checkology. Last month, students at Eastlake, Canoe Creek K-8, Narcoossee Middle, and Elementary School were surprised with an author visit by Jen Calanita. They were given the opportunity to ask her questions, be inspired to write their own stories, and some students even walked away with a signed copy of her books. Media centers across our district celebrated Hispanic Heritage Month by creating displays highlighting Latinx authors or books with Latinx main characters. The media specialist at Lakeview Elementary even aired some interviews with the local influential Hispanic members of their community for their students on their morning announcements. The Osceola County School Librarian Association also has a few projects that they're working on. Our Literacy Committee is putting together a district-wide bookmark competition where the students will be able to win book gift cards to their local bookstore. The Service Committee is currently working with community partners to create little free libraries to be put in book deserts across the country. These amazing things I'm sharing with you are just a few of the highlights of various activities that go on in our media centers every day. We welcome you to follow our Instagram and stay up to date, or even get involved in future events and activities happening in our media centers. Our media specialists are pivotal members of our schools. We often wear many hats and are utilized school-wide for different duties. We are the creators and curators of the media center, a welcome and positive space for all students. It's time that we've changed the narrative. Thank you.
Aaron Decker.
My address is 5350 San Miguel, Kissimmee. When I started my master's degree in library and information science, I wanted to be like one of those magical librarians in children's stories who provides the information and tools for the student heroes to succeed in their mission. Most of the time I feel like that librarian, but certain members of this school board and the community have tried to cast us as the villain in our story. Tonight, I'm here to remind you that we are not the villains. Our library media specialists are doing amazing work in our community. This school year, our media centers have already circulated 141,837 books to our students. Our book fairs so far have pulled in over $50,000 in sales. These statistics show clearly that our students and their parents want access to books to read for leisure, but more than that, they need the access to books. More than 60 education and library research studies have produced clear evidence that school library programs staffed by qualified school librarians have a positive impact on student academic achievement. These studies have clearly demonstrated that strong school library programs help all students do better academically, even when other school variables are considered. Each day that our media specialists are able to check out more books and have the funding to provide resources for our students, we are able to have a positive impact on our overall student academic achievement. In addition to checking out books, our libraries continue to provide a safe space for our students to learn, study, eat lunch, socialize with their peers, and discover the world through literature. We also co-teach with our teachers in the district on things such as research skills, information literacy, and how to find books that are just right for each individual student. We provide book clubs, reading challenges, and fundraisers like our book fairs to provide literature-rich reading cultures in our schools. We plan with our teachers, provide continuing education, collaborate in PLCs, serve on our school leadership teams, provide technology support to students, staff, our tech and green shirt teams, manage textbooks and other resources, put together yearbooks, manage social media for our schools, and support our staff by taking bus, morning dismissal, and lunch duties. We are integral and positive pieces of our school cultures. Fortunately, we are like the magical librarians in our stories. We do provide the tools and information for our students to be successful in their academic quests, and we certainly are not the villains in this story.
Thank you. See, Nelly Hernandez.
Good evening, Zinelli Hernandez, 2929 Moonstone Bend, Kissimmee, 34758. Tonight I want to share some good news. I believe Ms. Tanya handed over some of what I'm going to share tonight. The Heritage Foundation, which is a massive organization, did the 2022 Education Freedom Report Card, state rankings for parents. And they, I'm going to just summarize what they put right in the book for the community to hear also. The top ranked state across the board in our 2022 Education Freedom Report Card is Florida. The Sunshine State embraces education freedom across the board. Florida does exceptionally well in allowing parents to choose among private, charter, and district schools. District schools is home to strong ESA program and ranks third overall for education choice. Florida ranks first among states for academic transparency. Among other protection, state lawmakers set a high standard for academic transparency and reject critical race theories, pernicious ideas. The Sunshine State ranks second in regulatory freedom, making it one of the freest states for teachers and students to pursue education largely devoid of red tape. Although there is room for improvement, Florida ranks a respectable 7th overall in ROI, that's rate of return, which you guys were talking about tonight, for the education spending. Families looking for a state that embraces education freedom, respects parents' rights, and provides a decent ROI for taxpayers should look no further than Florida. So Florida ranked, in school choice, ranked number 3. In transparency, ranked number 1. In regulation, it ranked number 2. In spending, it ranked number 7. So Governor DeSantis was at this big event where they recognized Florida as the #1 in the nation. And obviously, there is room for improvement. What I want to see is Osceola County come up higher to be more in line with what the state is in other areas. And I know we can do it. I know that all you guys have the heart after the children, like myself and so many others. And we just have to work together. We have to rely on God for that, because we have a lot of problems, like I've said before, and we can do better for our children. But congratulations, Florida. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fernandez. Mr. David Latour?
David Latour, 2126 Continental Street in beautiful St. Cloud, Florida.
We have to give him a spot on the dais.
Thank you very much. No, what a privilege to be here this evening and to talk once again about our ROTC cadets at Osceola High School. It is certainly my privilege to do so. But before I do that, I want to thank Mr. Thacker. Sir, thank you so very much for your service on this committee, this board. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for supporting the water fountain initiative that we're doing. I would love for you to come over and see where we're actually going to put it in. So if you can fit it in your agenda, if you please come by. I want to show you, and I want the cadets to be able to thank you personally, sir. Thank you very much. I also wanted to provide the check, the $600 check to you, see if you can get into the budget process back. Thank you. Also, Mr. Vass, I want to thank you so very much for the initiative on the activities bus. That is huge. And I want to find out where I can sign up to be the first person to get that CDL. Okay, so that's, just so you know, sir, that it's huge. Using the van has been great, but to have a bus be able to do that, it reduces the cost significantly for our programs and our fundraising. I wanted to do also a shout out to Osceola County Sheriff's Department. Pardon me. So one of the good things about getting old, everybody looks better. On the 8th of October, the Osceola County Sheriff's Office hosted the first annual Osceola County Sheriff's Office JROTC PT competition on that Saturday. The competition consisted of an obstacle course, including a 150-pound dummy that the cadets had to drag 150 feet, and a road course challenge out at Lake X that's 25 to 33 feet off the ground to challenge the cadets' fear of heights. Air Force Junior ROTC FL 921 took first place overall in that event, and we're just so very thankful for the great opportunity that was provided to us by the Sheriff's Department. Yes, time goes quickly. Also, this Saturday is our Operation Keep OHS Green and Clean. We do it every month. This is the 22nd of October. We'd like to invite everybody to be there that can be there. We also have Congressman Soto coming. He's doing his Academy Interview Day over at Osceola. We're delighted to be hosting that. We have 2 cadets coming from Liberty High School to kind of be a part of that. So we have joint forces. It's not just going to be Air Force. We got Army coming. We've also reached out to Toho. Hopefully one of their Navy cadets are going to be over there to participate in this event. We're very excited about that as well.
You can leave them out. Leave them out.
What time does it start?
That starts, the Operation Keep OHS Green and Clean begins at 7 o'clock. We ask people to show up early so that you can get a good spot. Also, please RSVP so I can have the donuts for the after party. We have donuts for everybody that participates afterwards. And then I provided a folder for the board members. I want to thank you, the board members that reached out back to me about getting more pay for retaining teachers, particularly JROTC. And I would like to answer any questions you might have on that package.
Thank you, Mr. Latour.
Thank you very much.
Can you direct the question after?
Okay.
Thank you. Janet Moody?
Hi. Hello, everyone. Janet Moody. I live on 1965 Adamson Road in Cocoa, Florida. And I'm here tonight as a second grade teacher from Narcoossee Elementary School. And I just wanted to do a check-in with you guys to let you know I represent the elementary teachers on the east side of the county. I'm also the chief negotiator, but I'm not going to be talking to you about negotiation things, okay? So I just wanted to say to Dr. Pace, I appreciate the teacher talk. I participated this morning. It felt good to be able to say some of the things that I felt needed to be said and probably needed to be addressed a long time ago. I also want to tell you guys, as I'm checking in with you, kind of how my year is going. I am a person who thrives on routine. Procedure, routine, it's something that I embed in my students, and we just can make so much of a year when we have those routines. But this year, I'm really struggling getting a routine, and I want to tell you why. So already this year, I've had 10 auto splits with my teammates. I'm on a team of 11 teachers, and we've had 10 splits. I've had less than 10 days this year where all of my students have arrived at school on time. And when I say we're tardy, I'm saying we're running anywhere from 25 to 45 minutes tardy. And it's 3 to 5 students routinely. Some of it's bus issues, some of it is the traffic issue. But it's all interrupting every time I have to open the door to let a student come in. We've had 4 fire drills, and we've had 3 lockdown practices. I had 20 students to test for NSGRA. I had MAP fluency. I had a district math test to use school city for. We did REM place, and our REM place was supposed to be the 20-minute test that the governor thought was 20 minutes. I had to do 3 days of it because the first day only 7 kids were able to get scores in the reading, so I had to do a second day, and then we had to do a day of the math. So if you take away the hurricane days and you take away the other things that have interrupted just routine building in general, I've not really had very much time to teach during the first quarter, and I know that's true for many of the other teachers. So I don't know how much progress I'm making towards the overall goals, but I'm not giving up, and I know that the other teachers are not giving up either. So we just thought maybe when you guys know this, we can work with that. So I appreciate you taking your time, each of you coming twice a month to listen to everything that's good and that's not always pretty about our district. Thank you.
Alicia Hodge.
Good evening. My name is Alicia Hodge, and I'm proud to be Boys and Girls Clubs Development Officer for Osceola County. Didn't know I was speaking tonight, but I'm glad I have the opportunity to, one, thank the school board for everything they've done, help us make this dream a reality. I also wanted to thank, we've had tremendous support from the community, businesses, residents. We definitely, this has been a community that's wrapped their arms around Boys and Girls Clubs because they know the impact we have in communities. Now, 3 minutes is not nearly enough for me to tell you how impactful we are in the communities that we serve. You can find that on the website, but I will say I was extremely moved by the very first presentation here. At Boys and Girls Clubs, we have tremendous respect for law enforcement. We do amazing things within our clubs to bridge whatever divide there is between law enforcement and the community. And I want to say that we are the right place for young people like Danielle, I can't remember, but we're the right place for kids like her because we can support her family, we can make sure she reaches her highest potential. But I want to say it's as, or if not more important, that we are also the right place for the young person who charged the officer. And we feel that young people like that have potential too, and we bring the best out in them, and we look forward to serving in the St. Cloud community. Thank you.
And finally, we have LaBelle Monger.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I won't need all 3 minutes. Good evening, everyone. I'm LaBelle Munger. I'm just here on behalf of the Boys and Girls Club. I was one of the members of the task force led by Robert Bass and Raylyn. You all did an amazing job. Thank you all today for creating an opportunity for after-school programs and summer opportunities for our youth. Being in St. Cloud, driving 30 minutes to the nearest Boys and Girls Club doesn't seem feasible for a lot of the students and kids that we've seen in that area. And today we just made a huge stride of a year-long, actually it was before that, of planning and gathering, putting things together. I am a proud product of the Boys and Girls Club in my home city of St. Louis, Missouri, and it has done a lot. I wouldn't be able to sit here with as much confidence as I have to speak to you all, but the Boys and Girls Club created those opportunities for me. When I was in undergrad, my first job was with the Boys and Girls Club, coming back as a team leader counselor. So I know that we're going to create some amazing students, some amazing leaders that's going to have the seats that you all hold right now, the seats that I hold, for those that know about my busy life. And today we really just made a great thing for all of our kids in the St. Cloud area because God knows we need it. Thank you all. I gotta remind everybody, the event, saddle up, because I know Raylene got, my 3 minutes gone.
2 minutes.
2 minutes, oh, perfect. I can pause. All right. Saddle up, evening of engagement, November 3rd, 2022 at 5:45 at the Heritage Club across the street at OHP. We do have a special keynote speaker, Dr. Polinsky from Valencia College will be there. So not only do we have the wonderful school district, but we do have people on the secondary education level as well that's supporting this initiative, and it just shows what this great community does and have to offer. So I look forward to seeing everyone there, including the people behind me that I can't turn around because there's a microphone right here, and I don't know if it's going to have my voice, but thank you all.
Thank you.
I gauge how long we've known each other by your haircut, because when I first met you, it was pretty wild. I mean, now you're.
I ain't 60, but I'm getting old.
And I want to say, I'm so proud of you because I've been watching you, working with you at the chamber events, and he is going to be the incoming board chair for the St. Cloud Chamber of Commerce. So you have done phenomenal things.
Thank you. Mr. Koppenbacher, attorney.
Yes, before I go, just personal note, Colonel, I will not be able to go see the fountain because following an incident in high school, the priests and nuns permanently banned me from going near any fountains. So, send me a picture.
Okay.
First thing, members of the board, you have an appeal tonight pursuant to the County Ordinance 24-8. It is relates to a denial by the superintendent of an application for an impact fee exemption. You are acting de novo, which means you can ask any questions, take any evidence, or hear anything you want to hear about it. And then when you enter a decision, I'll prepare the appropriate order for the board chair to execute on behalf of the board.
Do I need to recess the meeting?
I was about to say, you now need to recess the regular meeting and convene the hearing for the impact fee appeal.
So we are recessing our regular school board meeting to convene for the hearing. Mr. Koppenbacher?
Yes, I'd ask at this time, I'll be advising you that the staff will be presenting. Ms. Blake, do you want to come up and frame the matter? And I'll pass out for you the letter that was issued to Mr. Ricker from Violin Family Apartments. That is the appeal.
Take one, pass one down, I believe.
There's a letter and then there's a packet.
Rhonda, do you have an extra one? Could you give it to the applicant who's sitting there? So that
Good evening. Just a quick history of what has taken place with the application. So on May 11th, we did receive the application from the applicant. On May 31st, staff conducted the first review
and returned a notification letter of deficiencies on how at that time it didn't meet the requirements. On June 8th, staff conducted a second review, and at that point, the applicant had met the primary elements of the application, and we prepared a summary for legal. We met with legal, and he agreed that the primary elements had been met at that time. So the only outstanding element at that time was pending a review through the finance department to determine if other school board revenue funds were available in the budget to offset for the exemption should we provide exemption from educational system impact fees. And then we were notified the other funds were not available in the budget. And then on July 26th, Dr. Pace executed a denial letter for the exemption from educational system impact fees. We sent that letter to the applicant and the municipality where the development was going to be developed. And then on August 2nd, we mailed certified return receipt letters. On August 8th, the certified return receipt letter was received. And on August 29th, we received a request from the applicant for a hearing, which brings us here this evening.
Thank you. Members of the board, just so that the board is aware for the record, Section 24-42, Educational System Impact Fee Exemptions of the Osceola County, Florida Code of Ordinances, provides that subject to the availability of other school board revenues to pay for the exemption of residential construction that qualifies as affordable essential services personnel housing meets the following. Each one of the exemptions is subject to the availability of other funds. So when Ms. Blake and Facilities completed their review of the application and said the components that they reviewed were checked off, it then is sent to your finance department, and at that point, they turn it over to the Chief Financial Officer, Sarah Graber. Ms. Graber.
Do I need to go first?
Please.
So in accordance with the ordinance, the only way that we can approve this is if we determine that we have enough capital funds available to not need to collect these dollars in order to meet our needs. And as you all are familiar, our capital needs far exceed the projected revenues that are coming in. So therefore, we are unable to grant this based on the needs exceeding the forecasted revenues.
Ms. Graber, is this exemption approximately $3 million?
Yes.
Thank you. And then that recommendation or that answer from the CFO was provided to the superintendent, who then made an independent decision that based upon that information, she was going to comply with the ordinance and deny the exemption. And at this point, it would be the applicant's opportunity to present.
Thank you.
I should also put for the record that we've been consistent with this in the past year, Rhonda. Another applicant was denied based upon the same reasons. Another two applicants were denied based upon the same reasons.
Good evening, school board members. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you all today to discuss the proposed new construction of 252 affordable workforce housing rental units in unincorporated Osceola County in Kissimmee. My name is Cricket Cleary. I am on the development team at Lincoln Avenue Capital. We are the developer on behalf of the applicant for this exemption. I joined LAC in 2001, and I have over 3 years of experience as an affordable housing developer. I personally have supported the new construction of over 900 units, as well as a lot of other experience by our team members that are out here. I'm joined by Rodney Younger, who's our pre-construction manager for LAC. He has over 8 years in the construction industry. He's an integral part of the team, making sure that we vet GCs, review designs for pricing efficiencies, contract negotiation, and keeping us on schedule. So just a little bit about Lincoln Avenue Capital. We are a national mission-driven affordable housing developer. We have offices in Colorado, California, New York, and Alabama. We currently own 112 communities nationwide, with 33 of those being in the state of Florida. So we love Florida, and we're really committed to preserving and growing affordable housing in the state. In 2021, LEC added 9,000 units across more than 55 communities alone, and we were recognized by Affordable Housing Finance as the fastest growing affordable housing developer through acquisitions. In 2020, the executive team made a very intentional decision to become a leader in new construction, ground-up development of affordable housing rental units. And as a result, they recruited industry veterans from really recognized other organizations like Dominium, Alliant Capital, Vitus Group, the Michaels Organization, many of which have built right here in your community. Currently, we have 32 land sites under contract for new construction, ground-up deals. We broke ground on our first new construction deal in June, and we have another 19 that are slated to start construction over the next 12 months, including the Salix on Vine. And all that to say, we have extensive experience with private-public partnerships and doing whatever it takes to build new affordable housing opportunities. We also have 108 employees and are fully integrated with our in-house teams in acquisitions, originations, asset management, finance, construction, resident services, legal, and human resources. So this allows us to be nimble, flexible, and bring economies of scale to the projects that we're working on. So as you heard, we applied for the exemption on May 11th. And we've really enjoyed working with the county staff on this. So as you heard, the facilities planning specialist found that this project did meet the requirements intended through the exemption. Again, we are requesting an exemption of about $3 million on an average cost of $12,000 per unit for the educational system impact fees. This appeal is really in due part, I'm sure you are hearing it right and left, really big interest rate escalations and unprecedented construction pricing. So it is vital that we, at this time, in order to move forward with the project, are looking for that. We basically have a $3 million funding gap at this time as a result of that denial. And we're really excited about an opportunity here today to hopefully have a collaborative conversation about coming up with a solution that works both for the school district as well as for the project that meets the goals of the exemption. So just a little bit of overview. This is in your binders. You don't need to go through it page by page, but just so that you have the full background, it includes a project overview as well as our full application that was submitted. So the Salix on Vine is the proposed new construction of 252 affordable housing units in unincorporated Osceola County. The site is located just off of Route 192 on approximately 13 acres. It's really well located, it's highly amenitized, and a great, easy accessible to a lot of major employers as well as local amenities that would support the residents at this site. The project would be built across 9 multifamily buildings, 3-story garden-style walk-ups, as well as a standalone community center. It would include 2, 3, and 4 bedroom unit types, so really designed towards supporting large families, which is really a gap that the existing affordable housing rental product has in this community. And all of the units would be serving individuals and families earning no more than 60% of the area median income. So these are working members of the community that just need a little bit more of extra help. And again, largely aligns with the exemption of providing workforce housing for essential service workers in the community. So we are financing this project with multifamily mortgage revenue bonds and 4% non-competitive low-income housing tax credits from Florida Housing Finance Corporation. We are currently in for credit underwriting with Florida Housing, so the bonds have been set aside for the project. And we're really good stewards of public resources in that we want to make sure that we can build housing as quickly as possible and get as many housing opportunities for families possible in leveraging those public resources. So in terms of the population served, this project will serve to advance the region's goal of providing workforce housing for essential workers in the healthcare, education, first responder, and tourism industries. We've heard tonight that recruiting and retaining educators has become a top priority for you all, and educators are one of the essential workers that would likely benefit from this project. Just on a review of several properties that Lincoln Avenue owns in the nearby area, we estimate that 65 to 75% of our Central Florida residents work as essential workers, even though at those properties there's no specific target associated with that. As you all probably know and why the exemption exists, there's no surprise that essential workers in Orlando are particularly in need of affordable housing given the mismatch between high housing costs and availability of low to moderate wage jobs. According to calculations by the National Housing Conference, a family with 2 working parents working in essential services, with each making an average of $25,000 per year, would need to double their income to afford a home in Orlando metro area, let alone save for a down payment. With this project, we will close the affordability gap, housing insecurity, and high housing cost burden that affects many of your community members. Based on our market research, we estimate that our apartments will be offered at a 30 to 40% discount to current market rents for comparable properties. As such, the Salix on Vine will save more than $1 million per year combined for its residents when compared to similar market rate apartments, allowing the residents to save money for their own homes and other endeavors and promote social mobility such as education, sports, or health. Overall, we estimate that residents will realize over $50 million in total rent savings over 30 years, which would represent a 17x return on the county's investment, the school district's investment. So with that, I'm happy to go into sort of the design of the project. A lot of that is in the application as well, but again, meets the requirements of the exemption. We take a holistic approach to housing with common areas designed to help families build a better future, including our clubhouse, fitness center, community pool, outdoor eating areas, shade structures, and other passive and active open areas. It's a community-centered development focused on livability and hopefully a home that people can take pride in. We also have in-house resident services that we use to promote social cohesion and enhancing resident connectivity as well as personal growth. So some examples of those are job training, after-school programming. We work to connect residents with local community resources like down payment assistance and healthcare assistance. We offer family resource days. We have really cool back-to-school days at most of our properties with backpack drives for the school members to go off to school with new gear. Really encourage these programs to promote self-sufficiency over the long term. We're really excited to have an open and collaborative conversation here with you all today. Happy to answer any questions, and which is really, I guess, my encouragement would be to just, we understand that this is the process and that the denial came from that process, but would welcome a conversation about what you think is reasonable. We work with local jurisdictions often to come up with solutions that work for both your budget as well as our financing capacity to bring the project to fruition. So we have a few ideas, but also, would welcome any suggestions.
Madam Chairman.
Thank you so much.
If I may, there's only one issue in front of this board.
Yes.
Whether or not there is the availability of school board revenues to offset it. If you want to discuss alternative options, that's something you need to get with the staff with. We need to talk with the county with, because you'd have to deal with addressing it in the ordinance, because this ordinance is very specific.
Thank you. I'll address questions first from Mr. Arguello, second from Mr. Thacker, and third from Mr. Melendez. Mr. Arguello.
I have one question out of curiosity by our attorney, which is not necessarily addressing the case before us, but when was the last time that we approved someone for this?
We haven't.
Never?
We haven't approved any exemptions for this type of housing. Sarah said.
We haven't approved an exemption, I don't believe, in the 8 years that I've been here.
An exemption of any type for any developer?
There is, to my understanding, there was one exemption 20 years ago to the Catholic Church in St. Cloud to exempt the
Bishop Grady Brewers for the handicapped children.
So for the one that lives
Other
on
than
site,
that-
other than that, we are not aware of any that has ever been awarded.
Okay, so unfortunately, like I said, that was not case specific, but unfortunately, I did make contact with this developer prior to your advisement to not to, so
I
I'm
know.
gonna rescind,
You're
or
gonna
I'm gonna
abstain.
recuse myself from the process.
Thank you.
File the appropriate form.
Yep.
That just, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Arguello, for noting that. Mr. Mr. Thacker.
I'm sure the company's, I'm sure the project's great, the company's good. The problem is it's $3 million. Impact fees are extremely stringent on what you can and can't do. Statute says unless we've got an alternative source, we can't do the exemptions. And I will make a motion to deny, is it to deny the request, Mr. Krevenmacher?
To deny the appeal.
To deny
Based
the,
upon
to deny the
The
appeal.
evidence presented by.
Right, because the only issue is whether the funds are there.
Can I make a couple points first? before-
We can make a motion, and you can
I'll
still.
second for then over. I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Thacker, a second by Mr. Bass, and we have comment by Mr. Melendez.
Yes. Kind of feel like, man, do I have an opportunity to really convince somebody if they already made the motion to go? But, okay.
Do all
We can
sorts of
withdraw
things,
the motion.
Mr. Melendez.
Okay, all right, okay, I appreciate that. Number one, the last one that we saw, it was, the person had filed, or came to the board, and I don't think they took the time to fill out the paperwork ahead of time. And I remember that was a deadline issue. So the fact is that they were looking for an exemption to even the process itself. So, I mean, I don't know the history of everything else. I can just speak to the last one that I remember. They just kind of came in at the last minute and was like, hey, this is what I want to do. And we tried to schedule like a special hearing, and it was just like, you know what? They're not following the process. Let's not, execute that. Here, it looks like it was submitted, the application dated May 18th. They literally went through all the different requirements. And as a matter of fact, I looked at Article 3 of the educational impact fees of the ordinances that you had submitted, Mr. Walker. 24-36, number 15, specifically states that Florida Statute 420, the Florida legislature, and Article 3, by the way, is talking specifically about educational impact fees. So there's different types of impact fees. So I'm trying to compare apples with apples. And number 15, Florida Statute 420, the Florida legislature directly recognizes the critical shortage of affordable housing in the state of Florida for very low to moderate income families. The problems associated with rising house, yada, 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 the lack of available, in recognition of these problems and the state's encouragement to local governments to work in partnership with the state and private sector to solve the housing problems, the county finds a need for local programs to stimulate and provide for the development of affordable housing for income eligible persons, right? The number 17 specifically says that to accomplish this objective, the board finds that it's fair and reasonable to create an affordable workforce housing exemption to reduce the burden of educational impact fees on income eligible persons and encourage the development of affordable housing. So it looks like the state legislature and the county both said, okay, we're going to create this exemption for a specific reason, because there wouldn't be an exemption if they ever didn't feel that they needed to use it. So the very creation of the exemption shows the importance of trying to get some kind of affordable housing going, right? So now, when we go back to the one that's in question with us, that everyone likes to use this definition, 2442, right? 2442 is the one that everyone's kind of citing. Again, but this came before 42, so it's trying to say, hey, this is the importance and the reason why we created this exemption, right? And so 42 then talks about the impact fee exemptions. And it does say, subject to the availability of other school board revenues to pay for the exemption. It does not say that other impact fee dollars or other capital dollars. It just says other revenues. So I did my homework a little bit further than that, because I love doing my homework. And then I remember that there was an impact fee moratorium by the county, like, I can't remember how long ago, but it specifically has, that's when we did a moratorium for 1 year. And the county decided that, because they had one for construction of commercial property, but they decided to extend it to residential property. And in the article I'm reading here, I know it's an Orlando Sentinel article, it's not exactly, the way it is, but it said that The change will apply retroactively to construction permits issued since June 13, which is back in 2011, when the ordinance was first considered by the commission. They will expire February 12th. So when they issued the moratorium on impact fees, they gave it a definite expiration date. And then as a matter of fact, it says, the county staff estimated that the suspension of fees on residential and commercial construction will lead to a loss of at least $2 million that will have to come out of general revenue. So they even used it, so, because obviously, if the impact fee money doesn't come in, you don't have the impact fee money to pay for it. You can't pay for it for something that doesn't exist. So they had to substitute it with an alternative funding source in order for that to happen. So technically speaking, we have $3 million in undesignated reserves. Well, how much money do we have in undesignated reserves at the end of the year from last year that are undesignated for no purpose at all, Mr. Chadwick?
I would have to pull up the number.
Okay, but I'm pretty sure it's more than $3 million. Now, the question is, does that money that's undesignated for no other purpose can be used for this? That's a different question. That's a question for this board. But technically, they meet the spirit and the letter of the law, which is the availability of funds from another revenue source. It doesn't say from capital, it doesn't say from impact fee. The law specifically says from other sources, and the exemption is there. Now, me personally, I'm not for waiving all $3 million because there's still an impact. But I'm for, since they followed the, matter of fact, there's a reason why this exemption exists. The school district on letterhead has it. So if we never use the exemption, why do we even create the form? Because there's a legal justification for the exemption of these issues. Maybe before there wasn't a big residential boom. Maybe before people weren't, housing crisis. Maybe rents weren't so expensive, and that was the intent of a prior board to deny. But I don't know about you, but it's getting expensive to live. And so I'm looking at the possibility of maybe granting not a full exemption. I'm not for full exemptions because we still need the revenue, but I need to say, okay, maybe we do a 10% or 20% exemption and we can pay for it from whatever revenue source, but I would like to do it conditioned upon the county participating. I don't believe the burden needs to come directly from the school district. If the county commission is willing to sweeten the pot and say, hey, we want to contribute to affordable housing because it's important, because we may benefit, but we're not going to benefit directly 100% because there may not all be teachers. There may be 10% teachers. So I'm willing to do something to be able to alleviate the workforce housing project. And I think, Mr. Crumbucker, you had something.
Yeah, Mr. Melendez, it's a very interesting point because what you pointed out is both the state and the county put the burden, said, we really want workforce housing, but school board, you pay for it. You help it out of your, which is already an underfunded thing.
Yes,
right?
I agree.
So what I would say, my recommendation would be that you deny it tonight. And if the applicant wants to, they come in and sit with your finance director at facilities and talk through the kind of concept you're talking about, because we have multiple people in this category. So you start touching reserves, there's going to be a point where you can't. So it's almost like we're going to set aside, I'm just speaking, X dollars and that's all that's available, but county, you got to match it type thing. We can go talk about that, but tonight.
And it doesn't even have to come from undesignated reserves. We still have a capital budget. We have an impact fee budget. So technically, even within impact fee budget itself, there's $3 million in impact fees.
No, you can't use impact fees to offset their impact fees.
No, but I'm just talking about, we're just talking about the monies.
But I think
there is available money. The problem is the money is accounted for. And that part, I agree. I just want to talk apples to apples, because I'm a technical nerd. I like the nerdiness. You know what I mean? I like the details. And the point is, they do meet the spirit of the application. So we can't deny for lack of subject availability of funds. There are funds. We're denying because we don't choose not to use the funds that we have available and dedicated to this.
No, let me
So I want to correct the record on that.
No, for the record, the funds are not available. They are already allocated. Reserve funds are allocated to reserve for emergencies. That's what it's there for. In the event of an emergency, all of your other dollars are allocated.
I don't know. I'm kind of
If you're going
disagreeing
to
with my
create
attorney.
the record that there's available dollars, then we got an appeal we're going to deal with in circuit court that you arbitrarily denied it. The reality is your CFO has said the dollars are allocated.
The dollars are allocated and the needs exceed the revenues. So it is up to this board how you want to allocate the dollars.
That's my point. And I'm saying, I
But
agree.
at this
I don't want to
time,
allocate
at
the
this
whole amount to it.
time, they are allocated. And time of this applicant. If you want to deal with discussing reallocating dollars, it's not the forum to do it.
But, okay, let me, just for theoretical purposes, I'm not trying to create an
Right.
argument, I'm just trying to technically understand, because I'm capable of understanding. Then theoretically, there's never such thing, because every dollar has to be accounted for, or allocated does not mean spent. We just give it, okay, when we get money, the school board says, okay, let's put it here, let's put it there. We shouldn't have any money that's unallocated. So technically
You should do.
speaking,
You have reserves for emergencies that is allocated into a reserve account below which you can't go. Because if you go below it, the state takes you over.
Statutory.
yes.
It's
But-
statute,
But you
right?
kind of contradicted your definition there, because it's allocated. The point is, it's still allocated.
No, I
It
said
doesn't
it's
just
allocated
it just
to
doesn't-
reserves. I didn't contradict
Okay.
anything.
No, but, yes, what I'm saying is that if you allocate towards reserves all the monies, and technically, there is no unallocated money out there on a budget, right? When we approve a budget every single year, that's my point, is you never have unallocated money. Or unless somebody can correct me and show me that we do have
No,
unallocated
but
money.
what I'm saying right now, there is no money allocated to cover this. It's all committed in areas, all right? If you want to talk about creating an allocation as you do your next budget, you need to have a work session and talk that through, and then talk through what's the impact. Like you say, we'll take 10% off here, we'll run to, how many projects are potentially coming down the line, and what's the economic impact to us? So then do you put a cap on it? I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but I love your idea about county, are you going to join in on this type thing? It's just tonight, technically, there are no available dollars, they're allocated, and that's why it's being denied.
Now legally, what are the different pots of money for it can be pulled from for this? Let's say there was money. What
Well, you
pot?
could
Would it be
amend your
sales
whole
tax
budget.
money?
You-
Would it be impact fee money? Like what pot of money is
You
allowed
can't
to be
take it from
used?
impact fees to give an exemption on impact fees. But the rest of your budget, other than what is,
The only caveat I would say is that we
Right.
can't use our general fund FEFP dollars to go build capital projects.
so you'd have to
Those
look
are
at your
operational.
capital dollars and your reserve account. And the board would have to decide, are they going to tap those?
Okay, so we can look at the general fund as non-FEFP, and we can look at capital dollars that, and the capital dollars consist of two different sales taxes, right? There's the,
You have your ad valorem millage,
Ad valorem.
and then the
So both of
sales tax.
those-
But keep in mind that your sales tax dollars for the voter referendum there's restrictions on how those can be spent.
Can't use that either.
no, that's what I'm asking. You know, I'm not
We
telling
can
you.
go
I'm
through all the
asking.
categories with the board. I just would suggest we have a workshop on that because it's a very complicated issue on how we get there.
Yeah, then I'm willing to look into that because we are getting multiple applications. And also, just the reality is that rent's getting out of control for a lot of people that can't afford it. Now, again, I don't want to be the sole provider, but I wouldn't mind being a part of, you know, the county and us working
Cities.
together. Just kind of like we did with the Boys and Girls Club. We looked at them and said, hey, technically, you know, they're still students, but they're not on our dime, but we decided to help them out, you know, to be good stewards in the community. And so that's something that I wouldn't mind looking at doing. And, but just that definition of subject to availability, or, so I guess that the way around that is during, let's say, the next year's budget cycle, can we allocate for the possibility of some kind of exemption and just put there, let's say, $1 million a year in that line item? Is that what you're saying is the appropriate way to do it, is to
You
set it up
could-
as a line item for an allocation for
Yes,
the next
you
school
can
year?
do it that way.
Where are you going to find the one to give that to?
No, you don't find it, you just put it there because you're never gonna get it. It's like the
Folks are
chicken or
gonna
the
come.
egg, because there's never any money allocated, so that's the answer you say, it's never allocated. So if you never allocate it, it's never
Could
available.
I suggest something? This is a very significant community issue, and it's not one for the board to solve alone. It's one for the board, I believe, to have a work session with the cities and the county and say, is there a way we can all come together and deal with this? But it can't be on the back of the school board, who's already trying to come up with dollars to pay our teachers more money and our classified people more money. And so I think driving that dialogue is the way to get there.
May I? Is
No.
there- No.
It's,
Okay.
you've had your say, they've had their deliberation.
Well, actually, I wouldn't mind hearing her as a board member, it's part of a hearing to go back and forth. If she
Are you
uses-
addressing the issue of how to replace the $3 million that we don't have?
Yes.
All right, where would it come from?
Well, I have one clarifying question. I don't think the amount of reserves was answered.
The amount of unassigned general fund balance is $55.3 million.
Okay.
Those dollars cannot be used for capital purposes.
Okay. Yeah, like I said in my initial outline, we're really accustomed with working with local jurisdictions to come up with creative solutions, and I understand that that's not the process that we're here to do tonight. There's a lot of ways that we can accomplish this. We would be open to a conversation about receiving a partial exemption.
I suggested you get with staff and start talking about that, because one of the things that I'll ask for is, can we please see your financial pro forma on what you're going to make out of the project before government invests in the project?
Certainly.
Right? So get with our CFO and our planning person, Rhonda Blake back there, who I believe you've worked with, your staff has at least, and start having the dialogue. And in the meantime, we'll talk with the chair and we'll talk with the county.
And the only question I would have, because you use a lot of percentages, I like a real number. Because when you say, okay, because developers can promise things, then all of a sudden, what's the rent going to be like? 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, are you really saving money? Because at the end of the day, if you're charging $1,600 a month rent, you're not really saving us money. You know what I mean? So
That's still
I would
not
like.
the issue for us.
Sure. So the average cost of rent in Osceola County, not bedroom specific, is about $2,000. That data is actually a few months old, so it's probably a little bit higher by now. So as I mentioned, we are restricting these units to 60% AMI. The requirements for this exemption are actually 120% of the area median income. So these are really supporting the target residents. For these 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units, the rents, it's actually not in here. Can I follow up with you via?
Yeah, just follow up later.
Yeah, but 60% of the area median income, I mean, it's between, for the different bedroom types, it's like $800 to.
I would rather have it in black and white. So
Yeah.
it's not, that way it's not a guesstimate. That way
Sure. I could open up my computer and get it for you right now, if that's helpful.
Thank you so much. Mr. Thacker, you had a comment?
We've got a motion on the floor. I'd like to call the question.
Question's been called. So I have a motion and a second to call the question. Board, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, so we have called the question with one abstention. This results in this. And now we will reconsider the motion that was previously on the table by Mr. Thacker, second by Mr. Bass, to deny the impact fee exemption. So, board, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-1 with one exemption. Mr. Melendez?
Yes. John.
Thank you. Thank you, board. Mr. Koffenbacher, do you have any
Yes.
additional comments?
A couple of other items. In the American Classical Charter hearing, the judge has entered an order awarding us $24,000 plus in attorney's fees and costs.
Awarded us?
Are we back in the meeting now? or
Yes,
are we
yes.
still
Oh,
here?
that was,
Oh, I
I'm
thought
so
you
sorry.
reconvened it.
You're right.
Sorry.
We're reconvening our meeting. That was my fault. I apologize.
In the American Classical Charter School matter, the judge entered an order awarding us $24,000 plus in legal fees and costs. We are now attempting to locate the $114,000 that was there at the time we closed down, as well as a number of records. We received on Friday an audit letter from their auditors that basically said you can't rely on the audit letter because there was no cooperation.
They couldn't reach anyone from the school to sign off on the management representations, so therefore the auditors weren't able to sign off on a modified
So-
opinion. They received a disclaimer opinion on their
We
audit.
will continue to deal with that. They appear to want to appeal the matter to the District Court of Appeals, so we'll see what develops. Second item, I'm pleased to tell you I received a call from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, who advised me that they had been conducting an investigation into a number of allegations involving the non-instructional operation. I was not told what the allegations were, nor what departments, et cetera, other than they were concluding the investigation and they had found no criminal activity by anyone involved. At some point, their records become public. I can't tell you when that ever happens. I don't know the answer to that. There is litigation going on in which a significant number of school districts have signed on to involving Juul. For layman's terms, it's the vaping. And they're suing the manufacturers and major owners of the vaping companies over the damage that's been done, in their opinion, to school districts, et cetera. Orange County, Broward, they're all in. I was contacted and asked if we wanted to join. It doesn't cost us anything, and there's no downside to our joining, but it's a decision by this board. If they win, they start a trial. Sometime in the next 3 months, the first lead case goes, and it's the school board in San Francisco.
Class action or something like that?
They're bringing them as class actions and as individual cases.
What is the claim?
The claim is that they, as I understand it, that they actively targeted and advertised to get children addicted to it, and it's caused damage.
And what is the claim to the district?
That the district has been damaged by that, with all these kids having damages from the smoking. It's almost like a tobacco case, but they're stretching it. I have to tell you, I'll be very surprised if they prevail on these. All right,
So we're going to sue, potentially, we would be suing as a school district, an agency which caused damage to a person, and we would be collecting on behalf of the other person.
No. We'd be collecting on behalf of what they claim is the damage the school district has suffered in terms of dealing with kids who have been negatively impacted by the vaping and or missed, the whole.
But would the money go to the victims? Or would we would be the victim in that case?
The victims have a right to money too.
Right.
But the money would come to the school district. Again, I'll emphasize to you, my colleagues and I are very, I think they saw the tobacco killing and they said, oh, we can do it here too. I will be surprised to see it.
And there's no cost to joining the suit, right?
No, sorry, and there's no downside. We can't have anything assessed against us.
But it would create a precedent, right, which is a pretty large one, in which we could get sued for the books that people are complaining about, right? Because they cause damage to kids potentially, if you get sufficient witnesses to say that.
I'm not going there.
Well, the point is the lawsuits. Say again?
I'm saying he's not going, but other people can go there.
Yeah.
We have produced so many lawyers who can come up with a claim to sue us over what we're wearing right now today. You know that. You went to the, and so.
You particularly.
Right, the question becomes, you're not hearing me recommend it or not recommend it. I'm just telling you what's out there, and it's your call.
I don't want to spend any time, I mean, it just sounds like a frivolous.
Okay.
We don't have,
Good.
I don't think we have standing, but. Yeah.
I'm okay with joining, just because, I see it. If it doesn't cost anything, we'll join the suit regardless.
Okay.
I think the consensus is no, but we have yes and no, yes. No.
I'll continue to monitor it. If they score in San Francisco, I'll come back to you, because that'll tell us a lot. But I just don't think the money will be there, given the amount of people.
Yeah, we have bigger fish to fry.
Last one, I just want to put in the record, because we had a nice invocation tonight. Anyone of any faith or denomination is officially welcome to ask. I just want it on the record, because trust me, I'll get a letter from this one group saying.
It's already on the
Right.
record.
And I'm saying it again, though. Anyone who would like to come and give an invocation can invite and come and make the invocation.
Talk to Ms. Tanya,
Right.
she can put you on the agenda, any denomination. That's all?
That is all.
Thank you so much. I have 2 items under new business, Mr. Melendez, that's all of you.
Usually the superintendent has a comment. Did you have any?
I don't see anything, no? Okay.
Okay, I just want to be courteous, because usually she has her
Agreed.
comments after the attorney.
Thank you.
All right, well, one issue that I have been speaking with the superintendent is, it's unfortunate that, there's been an increased level of activity of not proper behavior of students then I think somebody used it, high-risk students, that may even elevate to the point of expulsion. Because when we do expulsion hearings, we always get recommended, but we always try to work with them to some degree, give them some kind of alternative placement, et cetera. But this year, it is getting intense. And as an expulsion hearing officer, I'm kind of lenient towards going ahead and throwing the book at them. But then there's the heart in me that says, wait a second, you know, some of these kids, that's what they want. 2 years of expulsion, hey, it's vacation time. Or like with the Honorable Ken Smith used to say, now they're gonna go bounce back to us in the jail cell. So there's like some, in other words, there's some cases that are so severe this year that I don't even feel safe with them at New Beginnings. And so, but I really don't want them just going home. Now, we did speak with Mr. Phelps and a couple other folks. If they're like a junior or senior, man, they could just go to Alco and do whatever. If they're in the middle school or if they're a freshman, I don't want to give up on them completely. And so Dr. Pace and I, we're going to set up the meetings with the state attorney and also the chief judge and see if they can come up with some kind of alternative. And what I mean by that is, if the crime is so egregious, the judge can say, okay, go to jail. And if you go to jail, we have our juvenile justice department, and we actually pay our teachers to be there. I think one of them was there. That's not a problem. But that's only if they get assigned to jail. But what if the judge looks at it and goes, oh, I want to give you a little bit of leniency, and like, you know, hey, you just do a couple community hours of service, do whatever. Then they come back to us at the school district, and we go, okay, what do we do then? You know what I mean? So those are the issues. Those are the kids that are kind of trapped in between. And I feel like a couple of them may elevate to that this year. So we want to talk to the judges and talk to the state attorney and try to come up with an alternative to that. Like maybe they get administratively assigned to the juvenile detention center, but don't stay overnight. You know what I mean? But maybe they do like a scared
What are you
straight
looking
program.
for us?
Well, I'm just kind of giving you an update because I haven't had the meeting yet. But you know what I mean? I just want to sit there and talk to them and just let you know that this is kind of
And
something that's important.
as a board member who has potential interest in what that decision is for folks that I represent, I mean, we represent the entire community, but I would feel more comfortable if we were all part of that conversation. I don't even know what you're going to do with Dr. Pace, like if it's just a conversation.
Yeah, it's an initial, I'm sorry, let me just, let you finish. Now I was going to answer your question.
Thank you. Could this just be maybe a workshop that we can have, maybe specifically under school safety?
I believe we can, after we
Yes.
have the initial conversation, because it's tough to meet with the chief judge, because the chief judge was excited about it. She got 2 other judges to go there. And so, and the state attorney agreed too. And
They might come to a workshop.
they could,
Are
but,
we suggesting?
I mean, we could still suggest a workshop. But I'm just letting you know, this is a meeting that I set up myself.
Sure, I
And,
get it.
and I don't mind meeting with them, and then, but I can't obviously make any decisions. So based on the preliminary, I'm just doing like preliminary research. The issue is, I like to talk a lot, you know? I like to, there's nobody that doesn't know what I'm
Motion
doing.
to approve that statement.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not, in other words, I'm being uber transparent, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's what I'm saying. Now, after that initial conversation, the judges may go like, oh, we got no appetite. And I'm like, okay, there's no appetite. But if the judges start talking and say, okay, maybe we come up with some suggestions, I can't bind them. Then at that point, we can follow up and have a workshop and say, hey, here are some considerations that they're doing. You know what I mean?
Got
So
it.
that's the purpose, is just do a preliminary feel, because I just thought of an idea, but my idea might not have merit. The judges might go, Julius, you got a great idea, you're an idiot. I don't want to have a workshop to tell me I'm an idiot.
No, sure.
You know what I mean?
I
So,
understand.
but in other words, I'm not going to bind the board at all. I'm just doing preliminary.
Well, it's not
what they
about
think.
binding the board, it's about, this has community implications.
Pretty big deal. You're
Yeah,
on to a
it's
major
huge.
problem.
Yeah, so I would even suggest, Mr. Boya, I do see, I don't have a light to tell myself to speak, so I'm taking a little bit of, I will get to you in just 1 second. It has implications, and there's community leaders who I also think may want to have a voice in how we deal with these kinds of issues. It's not just board members, I feel like parents, there's a whole community that should be involved, so that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So not just, thank you for bringing that up, and I appreciate your report back once you have the meeting, but I do think it's a community conversation in this case. Mr. Arguello, I apologize, thank you.
No, that's fine, Madam Chair. So all great intentions, but that's obvious there. It is a very dangerous avenue to traverse, We would be creating literally a pipeline between the school district and the judicial system. That worries me. We would also be creating a cost and a burden for the people that we involve in there, which is all fine. The logistics is terrifying to me. And then the implications in terms of the kids in my district getting sent to another institution in some way, shape, or form. Now, as a hearing officer for expulsions, I absolutely agree. There are some, what we all witnessed recently, is craziness. We have to find a way to address that. How we address it, I think that it's probably, that's a 4-hour workshop conversation to come up with ideas without involving the chief judge. Because just by bringing the judge in, you're making a public statement that we're looking to the courts to resolve the issues with minors especially. So, and then you're creating a fulfillment issue where now they have to fulfill their obligation to the courthouse or what? And then that or what always means you're going to get in worse trouble. There's going to be a records issue. There's going to be a monetary concern. It's super ongoing. The problem with not resolving it ourselves is in itself a huge problem. And it's obvious this problem exists. It exists in every school district throughout the state. But even though that's a national issue, it does not resolve our responsibility to resolve it or address it here locally. I think that maybe we should have a workshop specifically to address or to bring forth ideas on how to address these things, because obviously what we're doing right now is just a complete and total failure. And say again.
You mean like the current system that's in place?
Yes, what we have right now is not working. I think there's nothing more clear than the fact that we are failing to address the concerns of the community. Now the parents are concerned. The kids, literally, I've had kids tell me, I can't go learn there. I'll never be able to learn there. That this is a distraction in every sense of the word. You know, I have teachers telling me that they have no control over their classroom for 15 minutes, and you're just saying Hail Marys until the bell rings. I mean, we have to address it. But if we don't address it as an institution, and we bring someone else, then, I mean, we're still failing. Now we're going to the Army.
I disagree with you that we're failing. There's students that are going to get in trouble no matter what.
I agree. I'm one of those students. But the problem is that nobody referred me to the court system, and that would be a whole entity, a whole relationship that I don't think that we want to create, because there's already people that say we are a pipeline to the jail system and so on, and we don't want that, and we certainly don't want to make that official. You know, as the one that represents the schools with the most issues, I don't want to potentially, arguably, I definitely don't want to subject my kids to worse. Now, again, as a hearing officer, they come before me as well. They have issues. Then you get to the point where you're trying to decide who's applicable for what program and so on. I think that we need to have a sit down as leaders and address the real issues. I wish we would do that for every single educational issue which is going on. But I think that's what we need to do first.
Yes. And I wholeheartedly agree with you, Mr. Arguello. Mr. Bass, and then Mr. Kroppenbacher, do you have something?
Yeah, I would just tell you.
I was just going to be real brief. You know, Julius, this was one of the issues that I wanted to kind of take on, obviously not on a grand scale like what you're looking at, but when I saw that the mentor program at St. Cloud Middle School for the at-risk students, it was a huge success. You had these kids who were going down the wrong path, and we had this dedicated teacher who said, you know what, I'm going to do this. And she funded it herself and raised the money, and those students then, she squared their shoulders around and turned them in a different direction. And that's something I always wanted. So now we have it funded in five of our middle schools. So maybe when you're doing your hearing off, maybe when you got that one student that's not just kind of on the border, maybe you can enroll them into that mentor program of that school. I'm not talking like something that's, having knives or fights or something. Something that you can see in that child's eyes that, hey, we can make a difference, Have them, because middle school's always, that's always the tough transition. So I'm just giving that as an option. In case you're confused.
Thank you, Mr. Poppenbacher, and then Mr. Arguello.
I would just tell you that I ran into this problem several years ago at another district. We brought in a ton of the students and asked them, how do you solve this issue? And they had very, very interesting thoughts and constructive. We created a student court where kids went before their fellow students and actually had sanctions, et cetera. So it wasn't the court system, it was the kids judging their own kids, and lawyers. I got a bunch of lawyers who volunteered to be the lawyers that sit as judges, and we partner with the law enforcement community. So Julius, you're raising it, it's a real issue, but you'll find your students, your good students will give you a lot of thought on how you can solve it and help and empower them to solve it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Arguello.
Yeah, I don't want to minimize the actual problem, which I think that you highlighted. So I think that if this is not a mentoring problem, this is way beyond. What we have going on is way beyond that. Unless we have the $3 million that we were talking about earlier to put into this mentor program and have full-time mentors, and they're constantly monitoring, and they're essentially a parole officer light. This is a serious problem that is disrupting education in our county. It's not just these kids are an annoyance. It is disrupting the education in our county. We have failed to address it in any appropriate manner. It requires some big thinking, some creative thought processes, and it requires for very large action. I'm afraid to involve the court system because the court system, number one, it's designed and it's legally adversarial. So we don't want to put families in an adversarial position with the school district or with each other, or bring adversary environments to their already troubled kids, right?
I think you're misrepresenting that to a certain point, because we're only having a conversation, number one, and we're not involving them. The court system is there. We're only talking about the most egregious of offenses. Like if you possess a firearm, you're going to go before a judge anyway.
That's
I'm
right.
not talking about like a kid
exactly
that
right.
got suspended and then we're going to go for the court. I'm talking about the most extreme of extreme, where I'm like, look, I'm at that point where I want to expel this student. And you don't expel for just throwing somebody's spilling somebody's milk on somebody. They have to possess a firearm, they have to be like trafficking drugs, they have to knock down a police officer and assault them. I mean, you're talking about
But those things are
egregious
already
offense.
covered by the courts. So that's my problem now, is what we're doing is we are creating an official pipeline. So the court is already, the court and the legal system is already addressing the systems that you address specifically.
Well, I think it's appropriate what the Madam Chair said, is that we do have a dialogue, and then we can have a workshop, and we can discuss that specifically. Instead of talking about some potential scenarios that could happen,
Well,
we'd rather have a workshop where we can discuss it.
Thank you, Mr. Thacker, I see your light. Thank you for highlighting that, Mr. Melendez. But I do want to stress that I actually wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Arguello with just the optics of even talking about involving the courts.
I motion to
And-
memorialize that statement.
Yes, right? Facebook, put it everywhere. Anybody have me online? It's fine. I think what I'm hearing is a really huge appetite to seriously have a conversation that probably should be scheduled as soon as possible. I think it should go under our safety and security. I don't know where else we would put it. And of course, independent of whatever work you're doing, you can bring those findings to us. But I do think that there is a huge appetite for solving this problem with our students, which affects all of our, it affects the entire community. It's not just a school district. So if I may ask Dr. Pace to, if we have consensus to have a workshop on safety and security, I don't think that has to be like a closed session, right?
No, we do have a committee meeting made up of community members and our staff.
Sure.
We can agenda it for the next meeting, and it's actually a process in place.
Our next school board meeting?
No, the Safety and Security Committee meeting. And have the board be there, and we can listen to them.
I think this is different.
Yeah, this is, yeah.
But I don't think it's different. The difference is that it's not a classified information because we're not discussing a specific case.
No, it doesn't have to be
We're talking
classified,
about
yeah.
security policy in general.
Right.
So if we're discussing a specific student, then you're right, that is inappropriate. It comes to the board. But that's the reason why the Safety and Security Committee meeting was made, so you could hear parents that we appointed to sit there. We can have there's an elementary school principal, there's a middle school principal, there's a high
Right.
school principal. Now, we can invite other people to that meeting and then actually listen to, get a cross-section of different people's inputs.
Okay.
I would
think-
welcome
I
that.
think-
That's fine. I mean, that's
Yeah.
great to have the committee come bring forth their own thoughts as well, yeah.
Then you give the committee substance, then people don't just volunteer their time. They feel like, wow, they feel valued. They're like,
I
wait a
agree.
second, people can listen to me and I can actually affect policy and it makes
Okay.
them feel important.
I think that we should definitely have a workshop within the next couple of months, maybe. I don't know if we can do it before the end of the year because we have limited number of meetings, but it sounds like that's
I'll work with
the
you,
next
Madam
best
Chair,
step.
to
And
look
of
at
course,
some
I know
dates.
you're doing other things.
Or maybe they could just join it. Maybe, you're right, maybe you can have, I'm willing to compromise, Madam Chair, because I do like your openness.
Yeah.
That maybe just have a workshop, but then invite the Safety and Security Committee members to attend the
They can
workshop.
always attend, yeah. Thank you so much. Mr. Thacker?
I think we kind of got some consensus, we're kind of beating the dead horse. Mr. Arguello, I do.
Sorry.
I do appreciate your perspective on, I had not thought of that, of bringing the judicial system in, and I think that is probably a bad step. I agree with your comments on, I think that's a bad slope. So I think we beat this thing and we can move on. And
Thank you. Thank you. Do you have one more?
Yes, my other item, and I'd spoken to Mr. Parkenbacher about it earlier, there's a lot of issues, and I've gotten a lot of emails even this morning, because I'm a parent as well, talking about there's too much traffic, they couldn't even make it to school on time. And so we all know about Narcousie Community School, had 18 portables to be built this year. We are short, I don't know, how many teachers are we now, Tammy? Are we short of the deficiency of, how many vacancies are there for teachers?
Like 49 is what I just.
How many?
Yeah, we're still 149 teachers short, and that's not even all staff, that's just teaching vacancies. And as we build these new schools, we gotta fill those vacancies too. And one issue that we had spoken about earlier, that I alluded to earlier, was that the county had instituted a moratorium on impact fees one time, right? But my issue is that what if we can, because what happens right now is when a developer wants to develop a new community, they have their own staff analysis. And part of that staff analysis did ask for the school board's opinion. Now, the reality is, I never remember voting on any opinion. It's always brought up to us at the very end. So we can kind of do it as a two-step dance, where when a developer wants to build 1,000 new houses, but staff can still do their analysis, but before it becomes an official pronouncement, that it comes to us as a school board and ask how we do it. Because from what I understand, concurrency is a state issue that kind of went away, but there's nothing precluding the local government from having its own standards in analyzing the development. Because at this point, I'm even willing to propose a moratorium on new residential permits until Sunbridge, Knightsbridge, or maybe even Kindred get completed. Because right now, the development is just, we could barely keep up. And it's not an indefinite moratorium, and it's not arbitrary either to say maybe in 1 year. It's not just capricious. It's until the schools can actually get built and we can actually house them appropriately, not in portables, but in actual student stations. And that way we can have time to get staff, because I'm telling you, I sent out my email and I got 3 other emails from 3 other schools saying the kids couldn't even make it on time because traffic was ridiculous. So we're going to keep approving more and more houses, and the infrastructure isn't really catching up. And I didn't realize the power the school board has to a certain degree. Now, we may not be able to deny it, but maybe we could delay it or something, because I'm not familiar with that. And I'm going to have to talk to Mr. Kronbacher later, because the county commission, when they approve, it says school board analysis. So I got to admit it, I haven't looked at the full state statutes and looking at it, because what of that analysis can we have an input on? Like, what can we say? Hey, there's not enough schools, there's not enough capacities, there's teacher vacancies. I could probably come up with a million statistics that we can show that we're behind, that we need growth to kind of, whoa. And I'm not anti-growth, but allowing us to reduce, because if we have 142 vacancies and we got built 3 new schools, well, that's more vacancies on top of that, because we got to fill those positions too. So the growth is like really getting out of hand. And so I want to try to do whatever we can within our ability to be able to slow that down. Like I said, at the very minimum, I think the board should at least, when staff makes its recommendation to the county to approve a development, that they come before the board and they give their justification for why they approve the development or deny the development.
Madam Chair,
Thank you.
there's 2 issues that is, I want to make it clear.
Okay,
One
no
is
problem.
there's consensus of the board to ask the staff to let the board know, yes or no, that what they have concluded before they send it to the county. And then that's the one issue. And then the second issue is one that I advise you need a workshop on if you want to start talking about the bigger issues and the moratorium and all that stuff.
Is this a workshop with other entities?
I'd actually, if you could, let me get with staff and then talk it through what would be the most productive for the board.
Okay, thank you.
And then Ms. Blake.
Ms. Blake, then Mr. Arguello, then Mr. Thacker.
So we as a school board or as a district staff, we do not approve or deny development. That falls with the county and the 2 municipalities. What they do provide us an opportunity to do is see every development plan, commercial or residential, that comes through the Planning Services Office. And then we determine what its impact is on school capacity. So if you go all the way back to your educational system impact fee study, it tells you what the student generation rate is per type of dwelling unit, whether it's multifamily, single-family, townhome, et cetera. So then when a developer comes in and they say they're building X, you multiply that by the student generation rate, which has been approved in your educational system impact fee study. And then we keep those cumulative totals that show current enrollment plus approved future development, and that's how we build our plan and make our recommendations to facilities and to the superintendent. And ultimately, that's how we get our 5-year plan. So then we make recommendations on which new schools to build, what part of the county they need to be in, and what grade structure should be inside of those schools. That is a pretty fast-moving process. So when it starts with a county or a city, it comes through, it goes through all their planners. We're one of the external reviewers, just like law enforcement, KUA, OUC, whomever. We get 10 days to turn our response around because they're obligated by their own rules and statutes to return responses back around to the developers. So we get 10 days from the day it hits our office to review those applications, type the analysis, and say, basically, these are the schools you're going to impact. This is the impact on that school. It's a form that we've agreed to many years ago. It's color-coded red, green, and yellow, et cetera. And then we return that back to the appropriate agency. So they will move forward without us. So if we started bringing all those recommendations or reviews to here, and by the time our responses are returned to them, the county and the cities will just move forward, and then what it says out by the school district is no response received or response pending, but they do not say we approve and deny. We've worked very hard to have all of those statements removed from any type of agenda because we do not approve or deny development.
Thank you, Ms. Blake. Mr. Arguello.
Can I jump in real quick, Tom?
Go ahead.
I'm going to excuse, I'm not feeling very well, excuse myself. And vote's not going to happen with this, but I'm on the board anyways. Thank you.
We know. We know.
Rhonda, nothing would prevent you when we prepare the statements, when we send them to the government, to copy the board members so they at least know what's there.
We can copy them. They're in all the local agendas. The counties and the cities publish them, but yes, we could. It'd be a little time consumptive, but to be perfectly honest, I'd probably have to add a staff member due to the volume that we're pushing through to add that additional step. But it is something we could do.
Email what we're sending to the government, so when we send the report.
Can I just look at your review form that you're using to do the analysis? And then to what degree or what statute are you looking at or referring to perform your analysis? Are we allowed to look at, the number of buses we have, the number of teacher vacancies? Are we allowed to perform other analysis beyond just the number of student stations?
Our analysis is based on supporting the educational system impact fee. So when it comes through, so it's all about the number of students we have today, the amount of capacity, and how much new.
But I want like the black and white, I want the law, you know what I mean, like what allows you to do that? You know what I'm saying? What is the statute that's giving you that authority?
Madam Chair, if we could.
Yes.
I'd recommend that we our team get with you, Julius, and go through exactly what Rhonda does, what is she following, and then talk through.
Absolutely.
And yet that way, we can be on target and.
Perfect.
Great, thank you, Mr. Regalado.
Yes, Rhonda, hold on one moment. I actually would like the last 3 reports that we sent to the county, and I'd like to review those. And then I just want to say, so the basic understanding, which this is a conversation we've actually had previously. It's very similar. It's along the same lines. Essentially, we submit to them our thoughts, generally speaking, either supporting or not, and then they can either bypass or they can take our advice, and they're going to do whatever they want.
No, it's, what we are provided is a courtesy to advise or to allow them to know that as this development moves through, the impact it will have on school capacity.
What's the deciding statement that we provide them of your analysis?
So it's a chart at the bottom, so I'll use an example. Let's say a development's coming in St. Cloud, and the 3 schools that are impacted are Narcousie Elementary, Narcousie Middle, and Tohobaklaiga High. It'll show their current COFD, it will show their current enrollment and the current capacity. And then we give a 3-year outlook, and it'll show 3-year COFD, so not warm body, COFD. It'll show capacity available at the school, and then current enrollment, and any new development approved in those attendance zone boundaries up to 3 years, and the overall impact that it will have. So then based on that data, then we are allowed to determine where we need to be pursuing future schools to open and what years that they need to be opened in.
What is your conclusory statement at the end of that chart, or in that report, or in that communication?
If we're requesting a school, then we note that we are asking to bring the developer to the table to dedicate a school site. If it shows that a school is green or they have available capacity up to 3 years, we show that. It might say that there's a new school opening in this attendance zone boundary in 2024-25, which will provide relief. It may say we're going to redistrict. So each school is independent.
There's no recommendation made whatsoever. Okay, so
It's just an impact statement.
Okay, that being the case, I think that we should make one. I think that we should have a conclusory statement added to the form where we are saying we project that this would cause too much of a burden on our district, or we would expect that this would have no impact on our system or something, right? Because number one, we, as a school board, they're flooding our schools with people because of development, right? That's out of control. We see it, 18 portables, that's crazy, okay? And I had the image of my mind when this conversation began. The images of everyone's face was hilarious. I'm gonna have to go back and look at the video. But we should, number one, we can ask anyone to waive the time frame. We can ask the county to waive, they don't have to. We can ask the developer to waive the time frame. They also don't have to, right? But at the same time, we should be able to provide a professional, right, and responsive report, not to the county, not to the developer, but to the public, right?
Which we do.
Okay, but you're saying we don't make a recommendation of whether we make a positive or negative recommendation to the public, and we absolutely should, right? We should say, listen, this development is going to cause harm to the school district. This development will not, right? Or this will be a positive for the school district. So we should, because that's giving them information, right? That's who we're responsible to. We're not responsible to the county. We're not responsible to the developer, but we are to the community. And so we're not providing them with any aid on a problem that we're having, which is extremely severe in our county.
Madam Chair, if there's interest on the board in that concept, would the board, I would recommend you let us sit down quickly and flush out exactly how, for example, we are advising you this is a tremendous burden on the capacity of the school. This is a tremendous burden on, so exactly what we
So let me
specifically
make
would say-
let me make a specific request. Okay, does not take board action. This is my specific request as a board member for information. I would like the last 3 reports that were sent to municipals and developers, and I would also like just one line as to whether or not we believe each one of those projects is beneficial, right? Or beneficial in terms of its development, or it causes harm to the district in the sense that it's taking us beyond our capacity to deliver education, or it has no effect whatsoever. And that's just it. We should not have to add more personnel. We should not have to get an advisory opinion from the court. It's just a simple email with the 3 reports and those 3 statements for the 3 reports, if I may.
Is that the color combination red, green, and yellow? Is that what that essentially means? So if you already have that and it's already color coded, does that suffice what you're asking for?
I would like the complete report that we would send the county. So the complete
Madam
report,
Chair,
which
why
we've
don't we
already
start
sent.
with just sending the reports, and then Mr. Arroyo, if he has questions, can follow up.
Because I like his train of thought where it's saying.
Well, I would request that, I mean, I know that we can get them ourselves, but if you are gonna send it to Mr. Arroyo, send it to all of us, because I don't wanna make, if there's a conversation that goes beyond this, I wanna have the same information that everyone's looking at. That's just my opinion. Thank you. Mr. Bass, you had a question?
It was
Or
just,
comment?
well, I could probably pass on. I was curious, Veronica, you got to know that, how many blanks have already been approved that that are already in the pipeline? I mean,
How many?
10,000 blanks, the developable lots that have already been approved.
I could look that up at the office, but I can tell you we're currently monitoring over 249 active building communities across the
You take
district.
249, at minimum, there's, what, 300?
No, I mean, I can tell you, I saw one come across my desk yesterday for 36, or maybe 80, and then you have your more significant ones, like a Thompson Grove, it comes in for 400, 500, 600, and then you start getting into your Kindreds and your Edgewaters, and your Tahoquas, and there'll be thousands, but then within those, for instance, Tahoqua has dedicated a high school and a K-8 site. Kindred has dedicated a K-8 site. Edgewater's dedicating a high school and 2 K-8 sites. So the larger the development, then, we begin to secure those school sites ahead of time, just like we've done at Center Lake, Sunbridge, et cetera. So the trigger for that is 750 units.
I hate to beat a dead horse, but now it's helping me clarify, 'cause part of this, for me, is learning the process too. Because I noticed that you keep saying student stations, and I guess they're there, but we also have a problem with filling teacher vacancies. It seems like the analysis is just, student stations, and that's okay, and you're probably living by the statute, that's okay. But I'm just concerned that when you look at the burden that's, I gotta hire school bus drivers, I gotta hire cafeteria workers, that analysis that staff gives to the county upon review of a development is beyond just the physical number of student stations, it's everything else required to make an education.
That's what I'd like to get with it.
Yeah.
I don't care what the law says, we can give them the information.
Yes.
Yeah, that actually clarifies a little, not clarify, but I mean, it crystallizes what your point is, because it isn't just a school. We have so many other ancillary externalities that we should consider. I don't know how to
Exactly
account
right.
for that. Yeah, and I don't know that conversation has really been had before. It's not
I
just
mean-
the building.
Sorry.
Yeah. Mr. Arguello? Okay. Mr. Arguello?
I think it's also important for the public to know
Thank you,
that
Rhonda.
we've said that, because right now, it's just everything looks like everyone is saying everything's great. Everything, here it goes, here it goes, here it goes, here it goes. At least we should do our thorough due process and submit an analysis to the public, really. I mean, I don't care about the county. The county knows what they're doing. They're not aware. They have someone just like Rhonda on their team that they know exactly what the impact of the development is. So do we. That we are not providing that analysis, communicating that analysis to the public, and I think that's where we're falling short, because at the very least, we can say we did our job, this is a tremendous burden, we can't afford it, and then the county can decide if they want. We're gonna do it anyways.
Yeah, I'm
And
not
that's
so
on them.
sure that even like at the county level, folks are like, oh yeah, it's more than a building, like they're not in our business. So I do think that.
They get They should
They
be.
may not be aware of it. That's the point.
No,
That's
but
what we're trying to
yeah.
get them
we-
to.
They should
it
be.
could
Yeah.
But if they're not,
Maybe this is
I'm
a gap.
assuming positive intent, but maybe there is a gap in
Well,
understanding.
but they've been commissioners for 10 years too. Positive intent lasts for like 3.
Okay,
So
well,
at some
I'm
point
just
you
gonna
realize.
assume positive intent until it's otherwise.
I believe in professionalism and due process. So if, for example, if I don't read my heart and I come in here and I vote yes or no randomly, you can't assume positive intent there. They should know, we have a duty, they also have a duty. All 10 of us have sworn an oath, and we should fulfill it. So this may be a gap that nobody has seen. Great analysis.
And we agree. So
And
we
we
said that
agree,
we're
yeah.
going to look into it and.
So that's great,
see what-
yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank
So we
you.
agreed to look at it and see what we can do.
Mr. Bassett, do you want to add?
No, I was agreeing, we need, no.
Okay, was that all you had for new business? Okay, I don't have anything else. Any additional board comments?
Yeah.
Yes.
Man, is that me to read? Okay. So he's not here anymore, but, I thought that was an excellent speech that Mr. Thacker had made earlier. I thought it was extremely genuine, and it was certainly nice. However, I wanted to remind the board that for a year or 2 years, right, we've disagreed on hundreds of votes. And it's completely in contradiction to the statement Mr. Thacker made. All these votes went in one direction, right? So it's easy to be a gentleman, it's easy to be a diplomat when 99.9% of the votes go your way. It's much harder to fight for the community day after day without any consideration to your concerns, without any consideration to the concerns of your parents that you're fighting for, or without the facilitation of a process in which these things are reviewed. When it appears, let's assume positive intent. Positive intent aside, it appears that people come into this room, have already drawn a conclusion, and have already planned to vote a specific way. So if you're on the other side of that, then great, no problem, right? But if you're on the other side and you do your research and you spend the time, I spent as much time on this school board doing work as I have for any job in my professional career. Number 2, the instruction, the teaching that we facilitated on Constitution Day is like comparing McDonald's to a home-cooked meal. As a social studies teacher now, and a teacher of law studies for about 5 minutes, right, all that aside, even I know that the topics that were brought up are not in the state statute in terms of the standard, not in the standards. So there's standards. There's no talk about the Statue of Liberty in the standards. I've been memorizing the standards, and so we're not even teaching what the standards are according to the state for that day. Why not highlight what the standards are and use that to teach Constitution Day? That would make sense to me. That seems like a tremendous oversight and a dishonor to the intention and a dishonor to our country even. The media specialists earlier, they had mentioned, books and Latinx communities. Well, I take offense to the phrase Latinx, and so does 98% of the Hispanic community who consider it personally offensive, according to polls. And the safe space statement. Every inch of space within our school district should be a safe space for every student. Okay, and that includes safe from violence, safe from sexualization, and safe from political ideology. Those are all things that we don't have time to deliver because we're not doing an excellent job of delivering education yet if you look at our results, our academic results. So until our academic record is straight, I think that we should focus on the basics of education. 5, I absolutely share the concern that the citizen speaker has regarding retention. I can see and understand completely now why teachers leave and why they leave our district in an even higher ratio than our surrounding counties. Lastly, Mrs. Moody, I feel your pain. I have no classroom of my own where I teach. I share a classroom for 3 periods with another teacher. Thank you, Mrs. A, if you're out there. She's an amazing educator. I'm learning, but she's just tolerating. So according to most teachers, they've told me I have literally the most challenging environment in which to teach, especially when you account for the fact that they're middle schoolers. And then a real serious issue of something that I've learned that I think that we need to address. Number one, teachers are faced with a very horrible decision. Either you pass kids or you face a mountain hill of work that is basically a consequence to you for your student not having come into your classroom ready to learn. The teachers are in the spot. They are literally against the wall. And I see it just like our discipline record here is horrendous. So is the fact that we have not spoken out against the real issues of education. It took me 5 minutes of being a teacher to realize that teachers are being brutalized on a daily basis. It's not all our fault. Some of it is the state, right? But some of it is this district and the responsibility of this district where it fails specifically. Some of the other things we can argue about who's to blame, or we can argue about whose responsibility it is to fix, which is my preference. But in the end, this district has failed to speak out against the real issues that are impacting teachers and our ability to deliver an education to our students. It's not something that any one of you would know unless you're in a classroom for at least a week. Some of us have substituted. You got to go in there, and when you're responsible for that grade book, and if you give a kid a 69 on a report card, and then you have to fill out these statutory mandated reports, and you have to call those parents, and you have to go through the processes. Even becoming a teacher, okay, the process in and of itself is a joke, okay, and it's just incredibly difficult. It literally took me 5 minutes. I could have been blind and mute, and I would still be able to figure out why our teachers are leaving this industry. And if we can't address it as educational leaders, even though not everyone here is involved in education, it's a failure of this district. We need to. And honestly, Superintendent Pace, I'm surprised that you haven't already. If I had been superintendent of the school district, every single day I would be talking to the governor about the problems of our schools, and I would be talking to the public and letting these parents know exactly what the circumstances are, exactly why we're failing as a district. Because I know in 5 minutes. I've been a teacher for 5 minutes, and it's very obvious what our problems are. But no, we're not saying it publicly. Instead, what were we doing? We're going to our friends and picking up awards. We're going here and saying so-and-so is great, and we're constantly slapping each other on the back like, great job. I mean, the education system in the United States and in this state, right, and in our district is atrocious. And the fact that we are not absolutely having the courage to come out and speak about what those issues are is just a missed opportunity to put this district and our entire society and our community on the right track. I think that we need to have a workshop immediately about the status of our education. And if you guys don't know, if you guys say you know and you're not upset by it, then you don't know. And if you don't know, then let's have a conversation, let's have a workshop, and let's talk about these issues. And I can explain to you very easily why these teachers are leaving, and I can explain to you why our kids are failing, and I can explain to you why our district is near the bottom of the list in terms of state districts. Thank you.
Thank you, and those are great concerns. I would encourage you, I know that you are involved with FSBA, and we do have the legislative subcommittee that would possibly help with some of these issues statutorily. So I hope that you are able to attend some of those meetings as well. Any other comments? No? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you, team.